Chapter 1142, Little Fatty. Chapter 1142, Little Fatty _ By the clear lake on a steep grassy slope lay a white, fat body. He fixed his eyes on the figures in the lake. It was a young, fat man who had his upper body exposed and was wearing a pair of snakeskin shorts. His small eyes squinted as he drooled and parted his lips. From this angle, the graceful body of Cecilia and Cang Yun in the lake were barely discernible. He couldn't see clearly. Moreover, it wasn't practical because the two women hadn't taken off all of their clothes. However, this fat white boy was so excited. A starlight quietly arrived and hovered by a big tree behind that little fatty. Yin was surprised. At first glance, he was sure that he had never seen this little fatty in Audrey's group. He couldn't help but knit his brows. According to Audrey, she had killed all the god warriors in this forest territory and the survivors were with her, following her commands. So, where the heck did this little fatty came from? At first glance, this half-naked little fatty was a human. His features matched some unique features of human beings. However, Yin felt something unusual. That little fatty gave him a strange feeling, a fear of danger that wouldn't be easy to deal with. Beautiful, eh? Pondering for a while, he lowered his voice and asked. The little fatty nodded instinctively. Yeah, so beautiful. Oops. He bolted up, turning to Yin and asking nervously, Who are you? Why are you here? The little boy didn't wait for Yin to answer. He gave a dirty smile as if he had suddenly recognized something. You're here to peep too, aren't you? Come here. My spot isn't as bad as it seems. Those two women look really nice. Hey, take a look. Who is more beautiful, you say? I like the plump one. She looks so sexy and strong. Little fatty lowered his voice and beamed despicably. He waved at Yin while still commenting. He seemed to not be wary of Yin, as if he wasn't worried that Yin would try his best to kill him. Yin wondered if this boy was bold or just naive. He looked like he didn't care about the imminent fatal peril. I like both of them. Eyeing the fatty boy, Yin wore a calm and cool face. He deliberately walked to the boy and said, I have never seen you before. You've just arrived here? Yep, I've just arrived here from another place. The little fatty smiled until his eyes narrowed. He swayed his fat body to make room for Yin. I came from the sea territory. That mad dog Harson has gazed at me and bit me for a long time. I had to play dead to dodge a culpa. I have a good skill of playing dead, which should rank first. Haha, Harson thought he had killed me. He was too naive, right? Yin listened to the boy babbling, his eyes showing a gleam of surprise. He had heard of the name Harson before. He was another outstanding warrior of the God clan who ranked right behind Haig. He was a madman who loved bloody slaughters. He was in charge of the sea territory among the 4 territories. That man was tough, indeed. If this fat boy could escape from Harson's hands and he could get through the barrier to enter this place, he wasn't a simple warrior. If he weren't strong enough or didn't have many tricks, he could never do what he had mentioned. Thoughts crossed his head. Yin told him all of a sudden, No more peeping? Why? Do you want to enjoy alone? Hey, you are too tyrannical, you know that? Little fatty hissed, his face angry. When I saw you coming, I've talked to you and proactively made you room. Enjoying this alone isn't as much fun as sharing it with someone else. Do you know that? They are under my. Yin wanted to say that he was in charge of protecting them. They are yours. Little fatty misunderstood. He intervened and said in awe, Deji, you're really strong. Then, he turned around and behaved. He stopped gazing at Cecilia and Cang Yun anymore. He friendly patted Yin's shoulder and smiled embarrassedly. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that they are your women. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done that. Pausing for a while, he asked, Did you kill Jia? You are in charge of this forest now, right? Yin was surprised. He looked at the boy, his face puzzled. You fused with the origin, so the ancient continent doesn't bind you. And you can gather earth and heaven energy. Seeing that you're alive now, Jia should be dead by now, I suppose. Yin slightly paled. How do you know that I'm not bound by the ancient continent? He became more curious about this little fatty. This boy could escape Harsin and come here through the barrier. He just needed to look at Shi Yin, and he could know Shi Yan's secrets. Who was this boy? If you couldn't see the situation around clearly, you couldn't find me or approach me that fast. The fat boy sounded casual, but he had gotten right to the point. Okay, tell me the situation in this place, please. Is there any possible danger? If yes, I should leave early. I should get back to Harsin's side. He doesn't have the origin. I can find a random islet to hide. He can never track me down. Audrey is in charge here. She's the princess of the Imperial Dark Tribe. She is fused with the origin too. Contemplating for a while, Shi Yin told him frankly. Oh, her. Little fatty was surprised. He nodded right after that. Yeah, right. The Imperial Dark Tribe must send someone anyway. Desolate is one of the 5 ancient continents, and it's the most marvelous one. They've been subtle for so many years. It's time to step out and raise the storm, though. Pausing for a while, little fatty squinted his eyes as he shouted, Deji, are you from the Heavenly Monster Tribe or the Immortal Demon Clan? Shi Yin was shocked. He looked at the boy in fright and confusion. Don't wear that face, little fatty laughed cheerily. I guess that you're from the Immortal Demon Clan because I can't sense the aura of my kind on you. Shi Yin was baffled as he looked at the boy. Who are you? Only the descendants of the great 4 creatures can fuse with the origin. As far as I've known, Haig has fused with the origin of Ancient God Continent, Audrey fused with the origin of God-blessed Mainland, and you, apparently, you fused with the origin of Grace Mainland. Haha, you gave me a close feeling of nostalgia. You're from my ancestral planet. The fat boy patted his shoulder. He wasn't afraid of Shi Yin or worried that he would attack him suddenly. You're a member of the Heavenly Monster Tribe? Shi Yin was bewildered for a while before he could figure it out. Grace Mainland was the ancestral star of the Heavenly Monster Tribe. It was the cradle of these kinds of immemorial creatures. They were one of the great 4 creatures. Shi Yin had the origin of Grace Mainland. If this fat boy was correct that only the members of the 4 creatures could get the origin, he could confirm Shi Yan's immortal demon origin in just a blink. As you're from the Immortal Demon Clan and I'm from the Heavenly Monster Tribe, I'm sure you won't harm me. Little fatty smiled until his eyes narrowed. Interesting. You're an immortal demon warrior, but you have the origin of my ancestral planet. And as for me, I'm from the Heavenly Monster Tribe, but I have the origin of your ancestral land. It's strangely coincidental, don't you think? You fused with the origin of Ancient Demon Continent? Shi Yin was astounded. Little fatty smiled and nodded. He didn't seem to attempt to conceal things. Should we exchange information? You'll tell me the stuff in Grace Mainland, and I'll give you the information about Ancient Demon Continent. Okay. Okay. Shi Yin took a deep breath and then bellowed. His face was stern. Splash. Splash. The sounds of bodies moving in the water arose. Cecilia's gentle voice came to them. Shi Yin, are you talking to someone? His bellowing had alerted Cecilia and Cang Yun. They were startled, and they hurried to change into their clothes. They flew from the lake and glided towards them. Their cold eyes gazed at little fatty and then at Shi Yin. Is this how you watch out for us? Said Cang Yun coldly. I got lost. The little fatty put on an innocent, puppy-like face and looked at Cang Yun and Cecilia. I walked on a straight road to this area. I didn't see anything. Hey, Shi Yin, right? He stopped me before I'd reached the lake. So, I didn't see anything. Little fatty opened his arms. Fat rolls on his face pushed each other and gave him a funny look. Gosh, who are you? Cecilia reacted and shouted hoarsely, You're not from Audrey's team. Who are you after all? As she shouted, Cang Yun woke up, her face cold and strict. Shi Yin, who is this man? He's not from this territory, right? No, he has escaped Harsin's grasp and gotten here. Shi Yin explained. Pondering for a while, he told Cecilia and Cang Yun, I want to talk to him alone. If you don't mind, please stay away for a while. Cecilia and Cang Yun exchanged looks and then nodded to Shi Yin. All right, we'll stay away. We will make sure that no one will disturb you. Cecilia answered him, throwing Cang Yun a glance. Then, they left together. After the two of them had walked away from Yan's, Cang Yun said, "I'm sure that fat boy had sneaked on us." Cecilia giggled. She seemed to not mind. It's far. Even if he wanted to peep, he couldn't see anything. Don't keep it in your mind. Pausing for a while, Cecilia became stern. That fat boy isn't simple since he got here through the barrier. He's absolutely not easy to deal with. Harson, you know how brutal he is. If this boy can escape from Harson, he's dangerous indeed. I understand. This man should be an extremely dangerous one. Cang Yun wore a cold face. I don't know what they would discuss. I think they have something they want to hide from us. Would it be related to us? If that fat boy and Yin go with each other, perhaps Audrey can't do anything to them. Of course, with the premise that they want to challenge Audrey. Cecilia's beautiful eyes twinkled. She was calculating something, which made her excited. Chapter 1143, A Samsara. Chapter 1143, A Samsara _ A dark purple flame glowing dazzlingly flew out of little Fatty's left pupil. It flickered and released a dominant soul energy fluctuation. Little Fatty squinted his bead-like eyes. He used the dark purple flame to sense the auras of other people around him. The dark purple flame danced and sent flows of soul consciousness hundreds of miles away in just a blink. This process didn't take a long time. He retrieved the dark purple flame into his head and laughed harmlessly. Those women are staying far away from us. They can't hear us for sure. Thus, you can tell me the story of Grace Mainland. Yeah, by the way, I'm Cang Yun. You can call me Little Cang or Little Yun. It's up to you. Don't be too distant. Little Fatty was a member of the Heavenly Monster Tribe. However, he wasn't born in Grace Mainland. He had always been curious about Grace Mainland that had given birth to their tribe. As he had suddenly found Yin, a guy from Grace Mainland, of course, he wouldn't let this opportunity to know more about his homeland slip away. The Grace Mainland's energy is exhausted. Warriors who used to stay there are now in Agate Star area. About Grace Mainland, throughout the immemorial epoch, the Antiquity era, and the ancient time, it was in the hidden corner of the edge of this universe. It's hard to contact the outer world. Yin told him everything he knew. Is there a place called the Heavenly Monster Mountain Range? Asked Cang Yun all of a sudden. Yes, nodded Yin. After we're done with this, can you take me there? Cang Yun's fat face shivered slightly and showed his thrill. No problem, Yin agreed. Anything special? Asked Cang Yun. Nothing. After thinking carefully, Yin shook his head. Cang Yun quieted down. He pulled himself together, arranging his words for a while before starting slowly. I can't tell the exact location of ancient demon continent. It should be like Grace Mainland and in a crack by the edge of the cosmos. Anyway, I know how to get in there. He looked at Yin and said, if you want me to bring you there, I can do that too. But I want to make it clear that ancient demon continent isn't very different from Grace Mainland. The energy there is exhausted, and there are no members of the immortal demon clan dwelling. He said continuously. Cang Yun was one of the holy beast Azure Dragon descendants of the Heavenly Monster Tribe. The bloody war between the Heavenly Monster Tribe and the Imperial Dark Tribe that had shaken even the big star areas ended with the Heavenly Monster Tribe's defeat and seclusion. Members of the Heavenly Monster Tribe had to try their best to hide and find a secret place to cultivate ascetically and avoid the Imperial Dark Tribe's pursuit. And in a very accidental situation, they found ancient demon continent. When they got there, they found that this continent had been barren for years. They didn't see any members of the immortal demon clan. At that time, the ancient demon continent hadn't had much energy. It wasn't suitable for high-level creatures to cultivate anymore. However, as the Heavenly Monster Tribe had just been defeated, they just wanted a place to stay. Moreover, they had a lot of divine crystals. After a brief discussion, they decided to stay in ancient demon continent. Cang Yun was born in the ancient demon continent. One time, when Cang Yun was cultivated underground, he had reached too deep and he accidentally touched the origin. Afterward, he had fused the origin with his soul altar. After many years, members of the Heavenly Monster Tribe started to leave the ancient demon continent and started secluding in other star areas. Cang Yun had also followed his fellows and left. When the members of their tribe all left ancient demon continent, it was completely depleted. It was just a barren, desolate star that didn't have any signs of living beings dwelling. It was merely a dead star. However, as Cang Yun had recently found the origin of the ancient demonic continent, he found that the continent was like a dry tree sprouting in the spring. It seemed to wake up one more time, and it started to gather energy from outer space. Ancient demon continent seemed to begin a new samsara and have a marvelous transformation. After he had found that, he came to consult with his precursors in the tribe. Then, he understood a fact. The ancient continents would never be completely depleted. The earth and heaven energy in an ancient continent had the samsara, or the reincarnation circle. It would have ups and downs too. When the earth and heaven energy there had reached its peak, it would gradually decline. After its energy was totally exhausted, the magical process of gathering energy would start once again. It would be able to collect energy from outer space and accumulate it. Ancient demon continent had been collecting the free energy in outer space. According to the elders of the heavenly monster tribe, the 5 ancient continents had a marvelous connection. When the other 4 ancient continents were in the worst stage of lacking energy, Desolate would have the richest energy. In this stage, Desolate would give birth to the treasures that were the most precious in this world. It was the rare chance of tens of thousands years for the warriors to enter Desolate at this point of time. Whoever could get to the center could harvest the items he had always dreamed of. Thus, Cang Yun went to this area under the arrangement of the elders of his heavenly monster tribe. You say that ancient demon continent is reviving? Yin shouted in astonishment. It's true. Cang Yun smiled until his eyes narrowed. Not only ancient demon continent. I think that God-blessed mainland and ancient god continent are about to be depleted. Also, they are going to gather energy remnants in outer space once again. Rumors say that the energy cycles of the 4 ancient continents are amazingly similar. They have a close connection. If Grace Mainland doesn't have Earth and Heaven energy anymore, the other continents will face the same problem. Today, as ancient demon continents reviving, the other 3 will have the same situation. So Haig, Audrey, you and I all have the origin of the ancient continents and we're all here. Yin pondered and frowned. The ground under our feet and the origins we have a special connection. You're here because of your elders' arrangement, and I'm here because of a man. I think it happened the same to Haig and Audrey. The fact that we're gathering here, and what Desolate has should have some connection. He eyed Cang Yun without blinking once. Can you tell me more? To this very moment, Yin understood that Cang Yun appearing here by the lake wasn't because he wanted to see Cecilia and Shang Yu bathing. His purpose was to lure Yin out. In other words, Cang Yun was here because of him. Don't look at me. I don't actually know the details. Cang Yun shook his head continuously and said with confusion, I don't know. My precursor just told me to go to the center. Something will happen there. And I think my precursor and your immortal demon precursor have contacted. They told me that if I met you by chance here, I should cooperate with you. Why has nobody ever told me this? Yin was enraged all of a sudden. It was the feeling when someone had discreetly set you up for something that you didn't know. Yin didn't like this feeling. He had come here because Shang Qian had come to him and Frederick, one of the bloodthirsty's cortege of 8, had asked him to do so. Discreetly, a pair of hands was planning everything for him, manipulating him and making him work as the other pleased. He didn't feel cool with this. Don't ask me. I know nothing, said Cang Yun dispiritedly. Yin darkened his face. Contemplating for a while, he said, All right, then tell me. What should we do now? I don't know. Cang Yun shook his head. My precursor told me to do my best to cooperate with you. I don't know the details. They told me that you will know what to do gradually. They told me to listen to you. I will know gradually? What the heck would I know? Said Yin agitatedly. The feeling of getting his fate decided by someone else displeased Yin a lot. He wanted to curse out loud. Hey, you have a strange ring, don't you? Cang Yun rubbed his head and asked all of a sudden. They said that you could know what to do from the ring. I don't know what it means. Yin changed his countenance. He instinctively looked at the blood vein ring, his thoughts flickering. The soul memory of the ring's spirit wasn't complete. It was still dormant now. It hadn't talked to him for a long time. After many failed attempts, he had almost forgotten it. He remembered the ring when Cang Yun reminded him. Perhaps the blood vein ring could give him some directions. He immediately contacted the ring's spirit. Unfortunately, he got no response. The ring's spirit seemed to disappear, which made him begrudging. Audrey will come here soon. Cang Yun gave a cough. He stylishly took out an exquisitely made robe and put it on. The robe shrouded his white, shining fat body and gave it a magical aura. The faint monster aura of his gradually disappeared. Yin couldn't find anything wrong with this boy. No matter what he tried to investigate and sense, Cang Yun was just an ordinary, fat human boy. There was nothing he could find to connect him with his heavenly monster tribe kin. He looked at Cang Yun in awe. Our tribe and the Imperial Dark Tribe are mortal enemies. If she finds out my identity, she will kill me for sure. Cang Yun smiled dryly and embarrassedly, which pushed the rolls of fat on his face together. I will tell her that I came here from Harson's. I have to join you guys to ensure that I won't be killed by Harson or Haig. What do you want after all? Said Yin with a dark face. He always felt that Cang Yun had hidden something from him. He felt that Cang Yun had his own decisions, but he didn't have anything to guess or read the other's mind. Although this little fatty looked naive and innocent, he was really smart that even Yin couldn't read his moves. I'll listen to you. Cang Yun smiled and showed his servile face. I don't know what to do, but I know it's not wrong to follow you. You will always get it. Yin. Someone is coming. Cecilia and Cang Yun dashed together from afar, as they all sensed strange energy movement, which was strong and cold and made them tense and nervous. It's Audrey. Yin didn't change his countenance. She found you when she used her soul consciousness to patrol. She's worried, so she came to check you out. Cang Yun squinted his small eyes, leaning against a tree casually as if he wasn't afraid of Audrey coming. Chapter 1144. The Charteris Family. Chapter 1144. The Charteris Family Unearther. The ear-splitting howling wind came near. The gloomy bolts of lightning dashed over and reached the area immediately. Audrey and the 4 members of the Imperial Dark Tribe appeared in front of Yin and Cang Yun. Her cold and arrogant eyes raked through the two of them and stopped right at Cang Yun. She shouted, "Who are you?" Flows of soul energy moved like the fine silk threads, slowly entangling Cang Yun and lingering around his body. She wanted to see even Cang Yun's smallest secrets. Yin was so surprised, so he also stared at Cang Yun too, his face uncertain. Any energy fluctuation from Cang Yun was so normal. Since he was a descendant of the immemorial heavenly monster tribe, he should have something different from the other races. However, Yin could see that Cang Yun's realm, aura, and god body were 100% matched with human clans. He didn't know how Cang Yun did it, but he could confirm that Audrey couldn't see anything abnormal. She couldn't verify Cang Yun's real identity. Indeed, after Audrey's bright eyes had moved around for a while, she relaxed. I came from the other side. Cang Yun smiled, trying to be servile and pointing at the sea area behind him. Harson of the Charteris family is in charge of that area. Before I came here, Harson had finished his big cleaning. Besides me, everybody else was killed. Audrey's face showed a gleam of fear. Both Yin and she were vigilant to Cang Yun. The warrior who could escape Harson wasn't weak. Soon, Audrey had considered Cang Yun a character she shouldn't neglect. How many people are there in Harson's team? Did they get a significant loss too? She contemplated, then asked. Harson leads 18 warriors. If you know about the Charteris family, you must know how crazy and ruthless they are. Cang Yun worriedly rubbed his fat face. Harson's troops are all madmen. They kill people for fun. The Charteris family of the God Clan is the most bloodthirsty one. Even among the families of the God Clan, they aren't very likable. The God Clan's Charteris family was infamous. Their name was known everywhere in this vast universe. Among the 12 families of God Clan, this family ranked right behind the Bradley family. Members from this family were all extremely bloodthirsty. Also, They were the most combative family of God Clan. This family was the key force in each battle that had terrorized the universe, and the originators of the bloody cases were also from this family. When the Charterises invaded a life star, they would eradicate the native race. People couldn't live in peace wherever they passed by. The Charteris family was known as the cleaner of the God Clan, or the racial terminator. This family was a malignant tumor of the cosmos, the worst nightmare of all. They were a sharp, bloody saber of the God Clan. They had invaded and slaughtered everywhere. People hated them, but they were also afraid of them. This family had a lot of madmen. The family members and their key disciples loved to massacre others. Harson was a famous, young lunatic of the current generation. His brutal reputation made him even more well-known than Haig. He was a tough character that no one wanted to encounter. Hearing that Harson had finished cleaning the sea area and still had 18 warriors in his team, Audrey's willow-like brows furrowed. Her cold face now had a dark gleam. The Charteris family wasn't easy to counter. Harson was a mad dog. When they met him, it would result in someone's death. If Haig could gather with the Charterises when they got to the forest territory, Audrey's team wouldn't escape death. I heard that Haig, Mia, and Phelps are on the other side of the barrier? Little fatty Cang Yun looked desperate. Haig is coming, and that mad dog Harson is here too. I'm afraid that we can't resist them. He had deemed himself a member of this team. Audrey didn't mind his hidden meaning. Her long eyelashes batted as she was thinking. Yin, Cecilia, and Cang Yun didn't say much. They were waiting for Audrey's decision in silence. They understood that if they let Harson and Haig gather, it would be a lethal threat to them. The center will open in any minute. Perhaps it will open tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Once we get to the center, it's possible that our team will be smashed. Audrey contemplated for a while, her cold eyes raking through her people. Before the center opens, the God Clan will move. They won't give us more chances. Even if we can get to the center, we will be smashed. The God Clan wants to terminate us. However, after we get into the center, it would be very difficult to kill us all. Cang Yun, Shang Yingyu, and Cecilia nodded. Apparently, they knew the situation, so they agreed with Audrey. Only Yin was still surprised. He came here in a rush, and Shang Chun didn't tell him many details. Clueless, he jumped into this place. He knew nothing about the center. When they got into the center, they would be smashed again. Thus, everybody had to start over again. Then, he might encounter 1 or 2 warriors of God Clan, and he might have a chance to kill them. So, it was good for him somehow. Haig and Mia also knew this. Thus, they had to seize the chance when the center hadn't opened yet to clear the remaining opponents. Only after killing all of them would the God Clan operate freely in the center. They could go to harvest the most precious items, and they could understand the mysteries of the ancient continent. We must seize the chance when Haig and Harson haven't united yet. We must choose to break one team. We must try our best to deprive their powers. It would prevent them from attacking us successfully even if they could gather later. Audrey decided quickly and said resolutely, Haig, Mia, and Phelps are together. It's not a wise move to engage in a battle with them now. We can't take the upper hand. Thus, we're going to Harson. Harson doesn't have the origin. Once we get to the sea territory, I can locate him. We have the advantage. Taking a deep breath, Audrey's breasts heaved. We must do it quickly. She didn't seem to want to hear Yin's or Cang Yun's opinions. She decided and then ordered the 4 members of the Imperial Dark Tribe, announced to them and asked them to gather quickly. The 4 members of the Imperial Dark Tribe bowed to her and then disappeared like dark beams of light. They vanished from people's sights shortly. You lead us and break the barrier. Take the way you took to come here and lead us back there. Audrey ordered Cang Yun and didn't give him a chance to protest. Little Fatty smiled brightly and nodded continually. He seemed to know how to behave in this situation. Yin looked at him and put up his guard discreetly. He thought that this little fatty had brains. At this moment, as he was facing Audrey, a member of his mortal enemy tribe, he could be much flexible. This boy was a dangerous character. Shadows drew nearer. The warriors of different races scattering around were summoned by the 4 experts of the Imperial Dark Tribe. They congregated as fast as they could. Not long after that, Immortal, Sha Zhao, Wu Feng, Jiao Shan, and the others also arrived. They looked at Shi Yin, their eyes asking for his opinions. Shi Yin frowned, but he didn't explain. After they all gathered, Audrey said, "We're going to the sea territory to counter Harson. We must seize the chance when Harson hasn't joined Haig yet. We will try our best to drain Harson's force." She didn't explain clearly. Afterward, she shot Cang Yun a look and ordered him arrogantly, "Take us there." Cang Yun laughed brightly. He nodded continually before starting to move like a fat squirrel weaving through thick woods. His flexible and agile moves made people gawk. His fat body moved swiftly in the air, as if he had encountered no obstacle. Just like a big airbag, he flew quickly in through the air. "Oh wow, we shouldn't judge a book by its cover," said Cecilia in astonishment, her beautiful eyes flaring strangely. "After him," ordered Audrey. By the edge of the swamp territory in front of the toxic gas curtain, Haig suddenly shouted. People looked at him cluelessly. They didn't know why he suddenly screamed. Haig was calm. When he found that Audrey was setting up a lot of barriers and restrictions on the other side of the barrier, he had ordered people not to go through there rashly. He sat cross-legged in front of the toxic air masses, closing his eyes as he was immersed in his thoughts and trying to find a solution that could benefit them. He had let Mia and Phelps leave this place to lure Audrey. Unfortunately, Audrey didn't move. She just watched the area where she had installed the death traps and waited for him to take risks and come to her. The two of them were playing the same chess match, but none of them dared to act recklessly. They had tried to maintain the original state. When Haig found that he couldn't wait for Audrey to bite his bait, he summoned Mia and Phelps to make a new plan. He was using his special ability of the soul consciousness to draw a map. Under his feet was an area where he pointed out the locations of barriers and restrictions behind the barrier. He had even given the descriptions of how the different metal, wood, water, fire, earth restrictions work. If they followed Haig's direction to get through the barrier, they could avoid many dangerous traps. It would minimize their losses. "Haig, what's wrong?" Phelps looked a bit shaken. He was excited indeed. "Have you checked it thoroughly? We will start now?" "It's not really clear, but we have to move now. Something has changed." Looking at the toxic air curtain, Haig said, "Those people left the barrier 1 hour ago. If they are not going to ambush us, they must have some new plan. We can't linger here anymore." "What change?" asked Mia. "Perhaps they are heading to my ice territory or Harson's territory. Once we get into that forest area, we will know where they're heading. It's troublesome. The center is about to unseal. We don't have much time. We must attack them quickly." While talking, Haig walked to the toxic gas area. He had proposed and planned this operation on the ancient continent. He wouldn't allow any mistake, so he had to go there personally. The water-like, thick toxic air started to dilute when he walked over there. A flame swayed and changed its color above Haig's head, which was burning a large amount of toxic gas. Boom! An earth-shaking explosion arose and shook the entire swamp. "Get in, all of you," Haig hissed. "Follow me and don't stay too far." Then, he jumped through the barrier. Chapter 1145, White Bone Refining Blood Ghost Grave. Chapter 1145, White Bone Refining Blood Ghost Grave _ Haig put his feet on the death trap prepared by Immortal, Sha Zhao, and Wu Feng. It was the least dangerous area because Immortal, Wu Feng, and the others had used the good stuff they had before, which made Mia's team pay a deadly price. They didn't have many lethal weapons to use after that. Haig steadied his body in this area. While his thoughts were changing, a silver metal ball emerged in his palm. When it fell on the ground, spikes jutted out, making it a metal hedgehog with sharp thorns and spinning in front of him. Boom, 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 boom. Gold bolts of lightning shot out rapidly. Sound waves exploded ear-splittingly. The earth shook as if there were dragons moving underground, releasing terrible tremors and dashing towards Haig. Swoosh! Haig's clothes exploded. Silver-scaled armor arose on his skin. Fierce spikes jutted out of his body. Instantly, he had transformed into his god undying body. In this so-called perfect fighting form, Haig's eyes were astonishingly placid. Each silver scale of his armor generated a furious energy fluctuation and made him look like a human volcano with the sea of fire around him. Boom, boom, boom. With Haig as the core, all the weak restrictions exploded. The fierce energy was triggered, and it burst off with echoes. Within that short moment, this entire area fell into an earth-shaking tremor. The earth looked like it received the rage of fire from heaven. Everything was burned, charred, and even the ground was cracked and black under the scorching heat. The brutal features and intensity of this fire had surpassed Shi Yan's heaven flame. It was the powerful performance of the flaming origin that had been fused to a high level. A beam of cold, dark light flashed in the corner of his eye. An extremely cold aura emitted and filled the area with white fog. The world of flaming hell changed rapidly. It was frozen, and it created many icicles. The flaming hell turned into a world of ice while Haig changed his thoughts. He had alternated the boiling condition and the icy condition in just a thought. Everything was done smoothly. When Mia, Phelps, and the god warriors arrived, they were bewildered and scared as they looked at the world of ice. Aren't we going to the forest area? Did we make the wrong turn to the world of ice? Asked a warrior in astonishment. The others had reacted like him. They looked baffled as they didn't understand. Mia's bold brows furrowed. She shouted and pointed at the area ahead of them. "You fool! Why didn't you look further ahead?" Her finger pointed to the area afar where people were surprised to see the endless forest with countless woods. Right after that, they understood. They all turned to look at Haig, and they looked at him with fear. They became vigilant as they knew how strong he was. Indeed, they had left to go to Harson. Haig sent his soul consciousness to check around as soon as he entered the forest. He had located Audrey's spot immediately. "They're 1 or 2 days away from us. We must move quickly, and you must notify Harson and tell him to hide. Don't let the others swallow him." Mia changed her countenance. She hurried to take out the sound stone and shouted at it, "Harson, be careful. The fish from the 2 territories are gathering and heading to you. You should leave immediately. Do not engage in the fight with them directly. They are really strong." "Oh." The sound stone sent her an impatient voice and then nothing else. "Harson, Harson, are you there?" Mia grabbed and shouted at her sound stone. Her face grimaced. However, the sound stone didn't react and its glow was dimming. "Damn it," cursed Mia. "We're going there right now." Haig bellowed. "That lunatic has mental diseases. I'm afraid that he will act rashly." The shoreless sea territory. There were many logs of wood floating in the sea, each carrying some members of the Charteris family. Sitting neatly on the log that led this fleet was Harson, the skeletal ghost-like leader. His eyes were bloodshot like the most furious, bloodthirsty beast. The tree trunks floated and moved like arrows. Shortly after, they had arrived at a massive island. This island looked like it was situated on one end of the sea and was inside a thick fog. The dense fog covered even the horizon and blocked the view. The wood logs stopped by the shore of the island. Harson brought the thugs of his Charteris family and walked to the other side of the island where the fog was the thickest. The other side of this area seemed to be a whole new world. The other side was the forest territory. "This island is the main port to enter the center. We will wait here for them to come to play with us." Harson's ruthless eyes scanned the fog. He suddenly grinned fiendishly. "Well, those low creatures are so naive. They want to kill me. Haha, I think we will have fun with them a little bit." "Young master, do you want to set something up?" asked a warrior who had a lot of blood stains on his face as he licked his lips. "Bluntwu, tell me what to do to give them a surprise." Harson smiled sinisterly. "White bone refining blood ghost grave?" The Charteris family's warrior called Bluntwu grinned fiendishly. The other members of the Charteris family had their eyes brightened. Their faces expressed their desires like wild beasts that caught the scent of blood. They nodded to him excitedly. "All right, it's the white bone refining blood ghost grave then." Harson laughed. Each member of the Charteris scattered and stood in their precise positions. Terrifyingly evil aura gushed out from them. Bluntwu shouted ear-piercingly while one of his hands tore his own belly as he tried to find for something in there. He took out a sharp, bloody piece of bone that looked like a dagger from his abdomen. Apparently, it felt so painful that he winced and screeched. However, his eyes looked manic. The same thing happened to the other members of the Charteris family. Each of them had torn their own abdomen, searching and slowly pulling out pieces of blood-dripping bones. The thick scent of blood filled the entire space. The whole place was dyed red, and a stinky smell shot up into the sky. Each member of the Charteris family had taken a blood-dripping bone out of their bodies and planted it in the ground in front of them. When they did that, the sounds of screeching, crying, and wailing arose. Cold gusts of wind slapped their faces and raised people's hair. Dripping blood. Harson laughed crazily, spurting blood from his mouth, which then sprayed on the bones planted in the ground. After that, a thick sea of blood arose above their heads. From a far distance, the blood of sea above the white bone refining blood ghost grave created by Harson and his fellows looked somehow similar to the blood soul sea that Yin had used his power Upanishad to create. It also had evil, wicked energy fluctuations that could affect people's minds and sink their soul altars. Harson's team was still doing something. Their god bodies slowly disappeared. From a bird's view, it was just a sea of blood where they could see a gloomy grave made of white bones in the middle of the sea waves. However, they couldn't see Harson or the other members of the Charteris family. They seemed to become one with their white bone refining blood ghost grave. A brutal, bloodthirsty aura slowly generated from the blood sea. It seemed to have an evil power that could condense murderous aura from outer space. Wisps of strange aura gathered from underground, the sea, and even the horizon. It seemed like the white bone refining blood ghost grave was attracting and collecting the last beam of the grudging aura of creatures that had died in the ancient continent for years. Those wisps of resentful aura could increase the power of that wicked formation. More terrifyingly, while the white bone refining blood ghost grave was gathering more energy, it had also distorted the earth and heaven energy and covered the entire sky that even the soul consciousness couldn't see through. This place? Cang Yun wiped the sweat on his forehead and pointed at the steamy area in front of them. He looked exhausted, though. It was a vast river, and they couldn't see the other river bank. On their side, it was the forest. The steam hovered and separated the two sides, so they didn't know where the other riverbank was. The thick vapor was a natural barrier that divided the vast river into two parts, the forest part and the ocean part. You should show us how you crossed that river. Audrey nodded and urged him in a cold voice. Cang Yun stopped by the river. Audrey had released her soul consciousness to sense that he had then crossed the steamy barrier to explore. She didn't see anything strange, so she wasn't really worried. Cang Yun had also sensed quietly. He didn't find anything strange either. However, he was cautious as he spoke. You guys should be careful. Harson is a lunatic, and he isn't weaker than Haig. Although he's restricted in the ancient continent, his lethality isn't less than Haig's. This man has a mental problem. He was born bloodthirsty. We can't treat him like a normal person. And his troopers are all madmen. When they feel that the situation doesn't favor them, they won't hesitate to make everyone die altogether. They can kill themselves to kill the enemies too without a bit of hesitation. Cang Yun was still fearful. In this vast area of sea, he had witnessed how crazy and brutal Harson's subordinates were. One time, a warrior of Harson's troop was surrounded by 3 warriors at the same realm. He was hurt, but at the critical moment, he committed suicide, bursting off the 3 warriors who were closest to him. And his soul ran away, and he returned to Harson. Later on, he could have a new body and recovered. Each warrior under Harson's command wasn't afraid of death. They listened to Harson like the most religious disciples. They could kill themselves for Harson. This kind of extreme madman was the toughest to deal with. That would give anyone a terrible headache. Guys, be careful. Harson is a maniac. Never underestimate him. Audrey nodded. She knew how dangerous Harson was. She agreed with Cang Yun's reminder. I don't know why, but I feel like something is wrong. Yin frowned as he had an extremely insecure feeling. He felt distracted. His acupuncture points couldn't help but vibrate, which confused him. There was a similar energy fluctuation hiding somewhere that made his acupuncture points resonate. Chapter 1146, Trust. Chapter 1146, Trust _. Deep in the steamy area that led to the other territory, although Yin didn't release his soul consciousness to sense, he still felt something wrong. Squinting, he focused on sensing. Vaguely, he found the vibe coming through the place of thick steam to resonate his acupuncture points. The negative energy inside his acupuncture points started to spin and become restless. They seemed to want to jump out of his body and escape his control. This feeling annoyed him a lot. He instinctively felt that something dangerous was hiding behind the barrier. Cang Yun, Cecilia, and Shang Ying were surprised when they heard him. They turned to look at him, their eyes asking. As Mo Fo and Wu Feng knew that Yin could see the commotions of earth and heaven here, they didn't dare to act rashly. They frowned and looked at him as they expected him to give more details. What's wrong? Audrey's bold brows furrowed, a mocking gleam sparkling in her eyes. My soul consciousness isn't shackled here. I can send it over there and check. I can see the situation behind the steamy area. When I asked Cang Yun to break the barrier, I've checked it. Nothing is strange there. Kid, don't try to impress people by making things up, Fuller shouted. Fuller was a dark spirit warrior, an expert from the high-level star area. In the territory of the vast forest, Fuller used to be a leader of the warriors from different star areas. He had led them to fight against Yujia. Before Audrey appeared, he was the leader of this territory. However, during the battle with Yujia, Fuller had fallen into the lower hand. Yujia had hunted him down fiercely. Until Audrey appeared all of a sudden. When Fuller's team was so helter-skelter, Audrey appeared and brought with her 4 members of the Imperial Dark Tribe. After one operation, she had led them to overturn the situation. After all, she had led them to eliminate Yujia's team. After that battle, Audrey had won people's trust and respect. Fuller wasn't an exception. He had given up his leadership position and listened to Audrey. Perhaps, because Fuller liked Audrey, he had maintained and reminded people of her position everywhere. Seeing Yin dare to question Audrey's presumption, Fuller jumped out and looked at Yin with a dark and harsh face. Can you see what is happening behind that barrier? Yin shook his head. Then don't talk nonsense. Fuller snorted, his eyes raking through the others. During the past 3 years, we've been under Audrey's leadership to fight Yujia. It has been 3 years and Audrey has never made a wrong assumption. Every time, she's precisely correct. The warriors who had followed Audrey nodded, their face respectful and admiring. Apparently, within 3 years after Audrey had shown up, she had used her special abilities to earn trust from all of her warriors. No one would doubt her even once. If she wouldn't make a mistake, Yin was the one to be blamed then. Fatty Cang Yun frowned. He looked at Yin strangely. Just like Audrey, he could see the life-energy fluctuation behind the barrier. When he left this area to go to the forest territory, he had checked once, and right when he arrived here, he had checked it again. The situation hadn't changed a bit. Thus, Cang Yun had also doubted Yin, who could be startled because of something trivial. He didn't consider Yin's words. Sha Zhao, Mo Fo, and Wu Feng heard Audrey, Cang Yun, and Fuller discussing that there wouldn't be anything dangerous behind the barrier. They finally eased their restless minds. They thought that Audrey wasn't bound by the continent, and she could see the change of earth and heaven energy too. Thus, Audrey could see what Yin could see. Moreover, since Yin didn't tell them the details, they were more inclined to believe Audrey more. Open the barrier. Audrey didn't mind Yin anymore. She turned to Cang Yun and ordered. Cang Yun shot Yin a look. He didn't take action but asked, "Are you sure there is something wrong?" Yin shook his head begrudgingly. "Just my premonition." Then it's hard to convince the others. Cang Yun felt sorry. Right after that, he agilely dashed away. His stout body moved swiftly like a feather as he drilled into the white steam. Cang Yun's god body disappeared into the steam. No one could see where he was heading. However, they all felt the sharp energy shockwaves rising deeply inside the mist. It seemed like the barrier was pierced through directly. No one knew what Cang Yun had done. However, they were all vigilant as now they knew that this little fatty wasn't an ordinary warrior. Yin. Cecilia let out a slight call. Just like Shang Ying, She was standing by Yin. They didn't move even though the others had already taken action. Right at this moment, Audrey, Fuller, and the other warriors had approached the steamy area. Mo Fo, Wu Feng, Jiao Shan, and Sha Zhao knitted their brows, throwing Yin a glance before deciding to follow Audrey. They didn't want to group with Yin and the two women, because Audrey had just told them that Haig, Phelps, and Mia had entered the forest already. They were moving really fast to chase after them. Mo Fo, Wu Feng, and the others were afraid that if they lingered, Haig, Phelps, and Mia would hunt them down shortly after. And in their thoughts, they assumed that Audrey was a level higher than Yin in terms of sensing life energy fluctuation. Since Audrey was the princess of the Imperial Dark Tribe, and the Imperial Dark Tribe was one of the Great Four creatures, a truly strong race that could stand against the God Clan, they obviously thought that only Audrey could bring them hope. After they had joined Audrey's team, Yin's weight in their eyes was reduced drastically. "You trust me?" Yin grinned. He wasn't enraged at all. He looked at Cecilia and Shang Yu. He seemed to be in a good mood. "I used to fight shoulder by shoulder with you. I know how strong you are. Of course, I'm not as shallow as Mo Fo's group." Cecilia smiled charmingly. "You won't shoot the arrow aimlessly." Shang Yu's voice was cold and clear. However, what she said warmed Yin up. "Audrey is so self-righteous. It's not true that she's right in everything. Although the time you and I are together isn't long, you have never failed me." Yin chuckled. "What did you feel after all?" Cecilia put on a stern visage. She didn't even lower her voice and just screamed. Because at this moment, Audrey, Fuller, Mo Fo, Wu Feng, and the others had followed Cang Yun to the other side of the barrier. They disappeared one after another. Shortly after, there was no one left behind. "Yin, come here." Cang Yun was the last one staying by the barrier. He shouted through the thick mist. "You should get there first. Don't worry that I couldn't get through the barrier afterward. I can open it later." Yin frowned and pitched his voice. "Okay, hurry then." Cang Yun couldn't see Yin, so he just replied and then disappeared. His aura also vanished. He must have gone to another territory. "I'm sorry I can't tell you the details now." Yin frowned and spoke to Cecilia and Shang Yu. "If you believe me, don't hurry to get there. Wait here for a while. When I'm sure that nothing strange is there, I will bring you in all together." "I trust you anyway." Cecilia smiled. "I still want to count on you when we get into the center. Of course, I will advance or step back with you." Shang Yu was franker. "I believe in my father's keen eyes. If he stole the guiding fruit from my brother to give it to you, I'm sure he knew that you have something strange. My father has never wronged anybody. Although I don't know what you have, I'm sure you're not ordinary." It was rare for Shang Yu to talk this much. Yin smiled, explained nothing to the two women. He sat down cross-legged and released his co-soul to sense. Haig, Phelps, and Mia were dashing toward them. Within 1 day and 1 night, they were going to reach this area. It wasn't a long time, but it was enough for him to stay here and check the situation. After verifying Haig's direction, Yin's soul consciousness condensed into one flow and slowly entered the thick steam above the water. He carefully observed and tried to know if his premonition was true. Yin discolored in fright. In that short moment, he stood up, his face stern. "I wasn't wrong." Cecilia and Shang Yu were astounded. They screamed, "What's happened?" "You too follow me. Remember to never leave my sides." Yin shouted resolutely and told the women, "You guys hold my hands, so you'll be all right." Cecilia and Shang Yu studied him. Seeing him solemn, they hesitated for a while before raising their jade-like hands and clutching his sides. They leaned on him. A sharp flow of space energy arose. Yin brought the two women and tore the barrier like a sharp weapon that could break anything. They landed on the new territory and steadied themselves on a big island. "Oh, what's going on?" Cecilia and Shang Yu screamed, their faces baffled as they looked at the area in front of them. In front of them was a blood sea with murderous, wicked aura shooting up into the sky. Situated in the center of the bobbing blood sea was a bone-dripping white bone gravestone. It looked so evil and peculiar, and it released waves of crazy, malignant energy. Immortal, Showdown, Wu Feng, Fuller, Audrey, and the others were swaying in the thick sea of blood. They were fighting against each other around the gravestone. The thick scent of blood filled the entire place. Besides Audrey and Cang Yun, who were nervous but managed to stay relatively calm, the others were fighting against each other. Their eyes reflected their bloodthirsty desire. Evidently, they would lose their mind and fall into bedevilment. Audrey and Cang Yun looked calm, but they were actually attacking the gravestone as they knew that it was the key of this formation. They wanted to break that stone as soon as possible. However, whenever they tried to approach the gravestone, Immortal, Showdown, Wu Feng, and the others would dash towards them from everywhere and risk their lives to stop them. The two couldn't do anything to break the stone. The thick blood sea, the bobbing gravestone, all were strange, but they didn't see the enemies. The situation was developed at the most dangerous point. Chapter 1147. Turn Earth and Heaven Around. Chapter 1147. Turn Earth and Heaven Around _ What's going on? My. Cecilia and Shang Yun were frightened. They gradually paled and felt dispirited. They couldn't accept it. I told you that something is wrong. Yan's face was dark and heavy as he sighed. Cecilia's and Shang Yun's jade hands clutched onto Yan's arms while he felt so chilled inwardly, his eyes flaring up strange light. The blood sea with the soul energy that could affect people's minds was the unique feature of the blood soul sea, an ability of his death power Upanishad. Why did it appear here? Who has set this up? Down there. Something is down there. Cecilia cried. Yan focused while terrifying divine light shot out from his eyes, drilling like a dazzling dagger through the blood sea. Under the blood sea, Yan could see bloody shadows moving swiftly as if they were part of the blood sea. If he didn't watch clearly, he wouldn't be able to spot them. Those bloody shadows flew everywhere in the blood sea and discreetly took action. They didn't hurry to kill the warriors who had gone mad. In their eyes, those warriors weren't threats. As long as they were still fighting each other, that bunch of insane warriors would kill each other eventually. Anyway, those bloody shadows were approaching Audrey and Cang Yun. They wanted to stop the two from breaking the gravestone in the middle of the blood sea. That gravestone was the eye of the formation. Once it was broken, the formation would dissolve immediately. Cang Yun and Audrey grimaced. Even though the gravestone was right there, it was like it had been planted in the horizon they couldn't reach. In the critical moment, they were often stopped by the warriors from their own side. Audrey and Cang Yun were so enraged. They suddenly recalled what Yan had reminded them. Audrey and Cang Yun were regretting in the blood sea. However, as their vision was blocked, they couldn't see Yan standing out there. They only had that white bone gravestone in their eyes. They had to break it at any cost. The two of them aren't affected, but it seems like they have no way to dissolve this blood sea. If it's going this way, those people will fight each other until death. As long as that strange blood sea is here, no one can escape. Cecilia was so worried. Yan, do you have any solution? Shang Yun gazed at him and shouted, if they are all over, we will be killed too. No doubt. Without them, we can't resist the God Clan. I know. I'm thinking, frowned Yan. He was sensing the powerful features of this evil formation. Using the soul consciousness to check, he figured out that it wasn't the blood soul sea. That formation wasn't urged by the power of death. It was a wicked and evil bloody sacrificial ritual that had gathered the remnant of evils in earth and heaven. It wasn't the real blood soul sea, but it had some features of the blood soul sea. As his thoughts changed, Yan vaguely guessed that this sinister formation was somehow a simulation of the blood soul sea from the death power Upanishad of the bloodthirsty's bloodline. However, it was just 40% or 50% similar. Getting sober, Yan hissed, you guys stay here. I'm going there. Yan didn't wait for Cecilia or Shang Yun to react. He jumped directly into the thick blood sea. As soon as his body immersed in the blood sea, the entire world changed. There was no sky or ground in his eyes, but the endless red hue of blood. He seemed to be shrouded by the blood sea. Blood dyed his entire body red. He didn't see Cecilia and Cang Yun anymore. However, he could see Cang Yun and Audrey now. Just like him, Cang Yun and Audrey were so enraged and restless. They were trying to approach the gravestone in the middle of the sea. Standing by Cang Yun and Audrey were Fuller, Immortal, and Jiao Shan, who were attacking the two. And Yin could see blood shadows moving under Cang Yun and Audrey, holding them like sticky, muddy puddles. They couldn't get close to the gravestone. When he appeared in the blood sea, he immediately felt 3 ghostly bloody shadows surrounding him. They didn't hurry to attack him directly, but they were gathering the energy of this area. Shortly after, a flow of energy that could madden the soul altar shot over from the white bone gravestone. A soul energy fluctuation that was full of bloodthirsty, insane, and destructive desires intruded his sea of consciousness, attempting to take control of his body. Yan's thoughts flickered. The poison-dipped cold bead emitted the cold energy that neutralized the energy that could disorder the mind. After a while, his eyes became bloodshot and dull as he began to pretend that his mind occupied. He immediately flew to Cang Yun and Audrey. When the bloody shadows surrounding him saw him losing control and going to attack Cang Yun and Audrey, they didn't watch him anymore. He made his way to Cang Yun and Audrey easily. Just like Mo Wu Feng, he began to attack them too. He didn't look different from the warriors who had their minds occupied. Even Cang Yun and Audrey thought that he was puzzled and had lost his mind. Damn, Audrey cursed. She looked at Yin indignantly. She thought if he knew it was dangerous, why did he jump in? Cang Yun frowned, his fat face tangling up. He was hesitating and didn't know what to do in this case. Help me hold the others for a while. I will make my way to that gravestone. Suddenly, a soul message arose in Cang Yun's and Audrey's heads. Cang Yun and Audrey were shaken. Cang Yun had a strange light in his eyes. He paused for just 1 second before he had reacted and took action. He stormed towards Yin, gritted his teeth, and attacked Yin. His acting wasn't less interesting than Yin. Quite the contrary, Audrey's beautiful eyes were bewildered. She had so many doubts. She didn't know why Yin wasn't affected and he could maintain his sound mind. Apparently, her reaction was much slower than Cang Yun's. When she woke up from her thought, she saw that Cang Yun and Yin were fighting furiously like a fire. Audrey cursed Cang Yun and Yin under her breath that they were two cunning, excellent actors. In fact, they acted really well. However, she could react eventually. She pretended to know nothing. Following Cang Yun, she started to attack Mo Fo's team while noticing Yin and waiting for his signal. As the bloody shadows deemed that Yin had lost his mind, they didn't do anything to shoo him away when he drew near to the gravestone. They were busy keeping their eyes on Audrey and Cang Yun. Now, all of a sudden, Yin's voice arose in Audrey's and Cang Yun's head like a thunderclap. Audrey and Cang Yun abruptly took action and drew all attacks of the others on them. At the same time, Yin, who was so close to the gravestone and entangled with Audrey and Cang Yun, immediately turned around. Starlight bloomed on his body like a galaxy falling from the sky and directly walloped the white-boned gravestone. Swoosh! A dazzling halo of sunlight burst out of Yin's ethereal extent with his tremendous god power. With the savage, burning yang energy, it created an intense sunlight and heat pounding on the gravestone like a real sun. Boom, boom, boom. The grumbling sounds arose together with the noises of bones cracking from the gravestone. It was taken down immediately. Pieces of bone rolled and fell. Anyway, there wasn't a single real bone exploded or smashed. The pieces of bone that had detached from the gravestone turned into blood light and shot everywhere. The thick blood sea vanished. The soul energy that could distort people's hearts perished at that moment. The warriors who had their minds occupied stopped attacking each other. The wild, crazy gleam in their eyes disappeared. Audrey and Cang Yun weren't attacked anymore. They now gazed at the collapsed gravestone with cold, dark looks. A skeletal young man of the God Clan sat at the spot where the gravestone was just a moment ago. Blood dripped from his body. One of his knees touched the ground as he was holding a bone and trying to put it back into his abdomen. His manic, resentful eyes fixed on Shi Yin. This kind of chilling-to-the-bone hatred was like a venomous snake slithering into Shi Yan's heart. The gravestone of the white bone refining blood ghost grave was Harson himself. When the gravestone collapsed, he also got hit severely. The bone that he had used to create the blood was almost broken, which made him hated Shi Yin to the bone. As Shi Yin appeared, he had broken Harson's plan. Now, he couldn't kill Audrey or Cang Yun, and he was in a dangerous situation. One blink, and he was in heaven. Another blink, and he had already fallen in hell. All was because of the grumbling impact from that damn sun. The bloody shadows slowly emerged. The blood hue and real dripping blood on their bodies disappeared and revealed their true bodies. They were Harson's troop, the members of the Charteris family. Those Charteris disciples looked savage and insane. They all had resentful eyes that gazed at Shi Yin. Just like Harson, they hated Shi Yin to their bones. That man had pretended to be occupied to approach the gravestone. All of a sudden, he struck a lightning-fast attack, which cracked the tombstone and shook them hard. Their bodies also got hurt. Shi Yin alone had smashed their plan. It was a pain that they could hardly accept. Immortal, Zhao Shan, Wu Feng, Sha Zhao got their sane minds back. Looking at the situation here, their faces grimaced. All of them had their minds occupied. It was unforgivable. Those warriors put on brutal and dark countenances, glancing at Harson and his warriors. They panted and waited for Audrey's order. Outside the formation, Cecilia and Shang Yingyu had a strange light flare in their eyes. They looked at Shi Yin as a thought arose in their mind. They couldn't trust anybody here but Shi Yin. He alone had overturned earth and heaven and changed the entire situation of their battle. He had done what Cang Yun and Audrey couldn't. In their hearts, only Shi Yin was eligible to be the leader. Audrey and Cang Yun were just his background. They couldn't be the key leaders. What are you waiting for? Kill them. Shi Yin broke the silence and shouted, "Aren't we here to kill the Charteris family's warriors? Did you forget your current humiliation?" His words had provoked the volcano in Immortal, Wu Feng, and Fuller's head. They roared and stormed over the others. Chapter 1148. Seize Power. Chapter 1148. Seize Power. Earth-shaking explosions arose from the center of the vast island. It was like the island had to bear a bombarding from meteors. Massive holes appeared. Pieces of land settled deep into the ground. Immortal urged his soul altar. An earth-yellow ethereal extent arose above his head. Gray dust and sand rose up, creating savage beasts that jumped out of his ethereal extent. With the power of earth, they became real and they wildly assaulted the Charteris family's warriors. Wu Feng, Fuller, Sha Zhao, Zhao Shan, and Zhao Hai were mobilizing their power Upanishad like the erupting volcanoes. The freezing, icy world of ethereal extent appeared. Another world of fire and hell glowed dazzlingly. Lightning bolts that could strike the entire sky emerged. All the warriors released their ethereal extent, their willpower that could overturn the whole sky. Together, they pressed down and covered the Charteris family's members. As Wu Feng, Fuller, and the others had control of their bodies back, they started to pour their flames of anger on the Charteris family's warriors. They were all ruthless and insane. Instantly, strong gusts raked through the island, rolling the sand and rocks. Fire rose high in the sky. Lightning bolts rampaged. It looked exactly like what would be the scene of Doomsday. Shi Yin changed his visage slightly as he looked at the earth-shattering fight. Hearing the violent explosions reverberating, he immediately urged his energy. Beams of starlight that looked like hair braids weaved with each other, creating a magnificent set of starlight armor and shrouding Shi Yan's god body. He looked like he was bathing in the starry night as his entire body looked transparent and twinkled, releasing the marvelous halo of starlight. Lightning strikes, flames, and gusts of wind were wreaking havoc. However, they were neutralized when they came in contact with his marvelous starlight armor. Nothing could create a scratch on his body. Cecilia and Shang Yingyu slowly moved, standing on his right and left sides. One looked so gently pure while the other was so sexy. They were like two pretty flowers that made people jealous of Shi Yan's beautiful encounter. They were surprised, indeed. Harson had shot him a malicious look. However, he wasn't free to care about Shi Yan as a mofo. Wu Feng and Fuller was attacking him at this moment. He looked helter-skelter indeed. Besides Cang Yun, Audrey, and Shi Yan's group of three, the other had joined the fierce battle as they wanted to vent out their anger by assaulting the Charteris family's warriors. The flame of war didn't burn only this section. It was spreading to the entire island. Shadows flashed and disappeared into the sky like lightning. In just a blink of an eye, they could travel 10 miles away. The warriors had urged their powers to perform the marvelous abilities of earth and heaven. They could see the lightning dragon, the sea of fire, or the world of ice. However, the terrible damages they left on this island weren't very different. This island was about to break. Explosions reverberated continually. Audrey's cold eyes moved. Her line of sight raked through the area, and then she fixed her eyes on Shi Yan as she asked, "Why weren't you affected by that wicked formation?" Cang Yun's innocent, fat face beamed as he squinted his eyes. However, he didn't ask anything. He knew that Shi Yan was a member of the Immortal demon clan who had fused with the Origin. Thus, Cang Yun believed that Shi Yan wasn't ordinary, and he wasn't astonished that Shi Yan wasn't affected by the evil formation. Of course, Audrey didn't know this. Being the princess of the Imperial Dark Tribe, her innate endowment was the most outstanding among her kind. She understood the essence of cultivating the soul altar. She was tough as she had endured different wicked pieces of training. That was how she wasn't affected in that bloody formation. In her eyes, Cang Yun and Shi Yan were ordinary warriors, so they wouldn't have the ability to protect their soul altars like she did. Thus, she knew that Cang Yun and Shi Yan were hiding something from her. She wanted to know that. "I don't know, either." Under Audrey and Cang Yun's gazing, Shi Yan just shrugged and shook his head. Audrey's phoenix eyes narrowed to cold, dangerous slits. She coldly glanced at him and released the prying energy to break into his soul altar. Bang! It felt like when you hit a leather drum. Audrey's soul consciousness was shaken as she bounced back from Shi Yan's head. "Under the given circumstances that you're not allowed, please don't touch my soul altar. Of course, if you want to do soul intercourse, it's another story." Shi Yan grinned. "Cecilia and Sheng-Ying, you were so surprised." They looked strange, their eyes discreetly observing Audrey as if they were somehow amused. Cang Yun grinned. He also shot Audrey an odd look, and then at Shi Yan with a little, sneaky, ambiguous smile. The arrogant and proud Audrey's exquisite face stiff. It seemed like she had never experienced the same teasing from her male friends before. For the time being, her beautiful eyes looked puzzled. She pulled herself together after a long moment, wearing a very strange countenance. "Are you teasing me?" she asked to check if it was true. No." Shi Yan felt funny as he shook his head. "I want to make it clear that I don't like my soul altar being touched. Unless a woman wants to do soul intercourse with me, I will consider carefully." "Lowly little human brat. You dare to talk so vulgarly to me. I doubt that you want to live anymore." Magically, Audrey's voice was calmer than she had ever been before. Her beautiful eyes turned into slits like icicles that gazed at Shi Yan. "Then," she said faintly, "wait until we've finished Harson and killed all the members of the Charteris here. Then, we'll talk." "Nah, you guys. Don't be like that. It's our priority to deal with the God Clan. After that, you can play however you want." Cang Yun tried to ease the tension. Too bad for him. Audrey didn't give him face. She snorted arrogantly and lifted her face up. She didn't even bat an eye at him. Shi Yan shrugged, talking as if nothing mattered to him. "Well, help yourself. I've yielded to you and have been willing to listen to your orders. It's because I believe you can guide people on the right track. But it turns out that it's not like that. You do make mistakes. This time, your mistake has almost killed all of our warriors. I did remind you, but you didn't listen." Cang Yun frowned and thoughts rolled in his head. His bead-like eyes brightened as he suddenly got something. Shi Yan had to take this chance to seize power. Before this event, Fuller and the others had deemed that Audrey was the best choice and that she could lead them to resist the God Clan and claim the final victory. It was because Audrey had never made a mistake before. But it was different now. If Shi Yin hadn't smashed the gravestone, Fuller, Immortal, Sha Zhao, and everybody else would have been killed by the Charteris family's warriors. None of them could have escaped. Especially since Shi Yin had told them that something was wrong before they got here. Audrey couldn't sense the abnormality or by what he told her. With all of these and the support from Immortal, Sha Zhao, Wu Feng, Cecilia, and Cang Yun himself, it would be possible for Shi Yin to take control. If he could defeat Audrey, it meant that he was stronger than Audrey. And as he could sense the changes of the earth and heaven energy, he would have a bigger chance. Cang Yun was discreetly excited. He wanted to support Shi Yin. He knew that if Shi Yin could become the leader of this group, it would be much easier for them. No one could control them, so they would be free to do many things. Big mouth, though. Audrey's beautiful eyes were cold. Soul energy emitted from her more fiercely. She coldly looked at Shi Yin as if she was gathering energy. Immortal, Wu Feng, Fuller, and the others were chasing the warriors of the Charteris family around the island. Since they were doubled in number, they had a significant advantage. The warriors of the Charteris family were struggling crazily. However, their room was being narrowed. If nothing unexpected happened, Immortal, Wu Feng's team would win in the end. They could clear the warriors of the Charteris family quickly. While they were fighting, Shi Yin and Audrey didn't exchange a word. The atmosphere around them was tense and stiff, as if they would burst out fighting against each other in any minute. As Cang Yun wished Shi Yin to successfully seize power, he didn't advise the two, but pushed it further. He smiled, his eyes squinting. I think it's not a bad idea to make Shi Yin the leader. Without him, I'm afraid that all of us would have suffered. His voice was like a thunderclap that was sent around the island. Everybody could hear him clearly. Cecilia and Shang Yingyu stood on his left and right. Of course, they supported him. They nodded continually upon hearing Cang Yun. Audrey's eyes were as cold as ice. Her perfectly proportioned body shivered. Obviously, she was enraged. You and I will compete once. Shi Yin appraised Cang Yun for understanding him tacitly. He rose his voice. You and I will take action to kill the members of the Charteris family. Let's see who can kill more. The loser will give up the leader position and listen to the winner. Do you dare to play with me? Every warrior on the island could hear him. Immortal, Fuller, Sha Zhao, and Wu Feng were astounded. Many warriors who had followed Audrey earlier just listened. No one opened their mouths to question or object him. If Shi Yin had challenged Audrey like that earlier, her followers would have swarmed him with insults and attacks. However, since Audrey had just made a fatal mistake and Shi Yin had saved them from the wicked formation, they suddenly recognized that Audrey couldn't always be right, and that she wasn't their only choice to be the leader. Shi Yin's appearance was also an available option. They wanted to see who is stronger. Good solution. Cang Yun shouted, I agree with this method. You guys don't need to fight against each other to reduce our powers. Creating a competition upon killing our enemies, whether you lose or win, you contribute to our team. I like it. I support it. We also support this idea. Immortal, Wu Feng, Jiao Hai, Jiao Shan, Sha Zhao, and the warriors coming with Shi Yin had woken up after Shi Yin had saved them one more time. They yelled in agreement. Fuller and the others remained silent. They just tried to attack the Charteris family's members more harshly. They wanted to circle those warriors like they were luring animals into cages. Okay, I agree. Audrey took a deep breath. She smiled coldly. Low creature, you don't know how high the sky is. Today, I will show you why the Imperial Dark Tribe is called one of the Great Four Creatures. Let's make this bet. Chapter 1149. It's the first one. Chapter 1149. It's the first one. In the vast woods, Haig, Mia, Phelps, and the warriors of the God clan were dashing like lightning. God power that emitted from their bodies were rattling the woods as they were heading to the island where Harsin's team and Shi Yan's team were fighting at their maximum speed. Suddenly, the sound stone in Mia's sleeve sounded ear-piercingly. Mia paled, her finger fiddling the stone. She cursed out loud. Harsin is engaging in battle with them. Damn! Haig darkened his face, his countenance solemn. That lunatic! Phelps couldn't help but curse. We've noticed him and asked him to be careful. He didn't listen. If he contacts us now, there is only one possibility. He can't endure it anymore. Haig and Mia nodded in agreement. They knew Harson well. Unless he was back to the dead corner without any possible solution, with his stubborn head, he would never request for a rescue. This madman was really stubborn. If he called Mia, it meant that his team was besieged in a really perilous situation without a single chance to overturn. Otherwise, he would still make the last bet. He would never admit his failure. This man was always that brave and stubborn. We must go faster. At the critical moment, Haig was always terrifyingly placid. At our speed, I'm afraid that we can't help him on time. Okay, we should go faster. He looked at Phelps, Mia, and Peyton. Phelps, Mia, and Peyton all had secret treasures, and they had cultivated a unique technique of the God Clan that would boost their energy for a short time and create a tremendous explosive power. Okay. Mia, Phelps, Peyton, and the three other God warriors nodded, their face dark and solemn. In the next moment, flows of ruthless, savage auras gushed out from the bodies of the 7 warriors, including Haig. They had transformed into their undying god bodies that looked formidable. Energy shot out from them all along the way. With the furious energy, the 7 warriors turned into 7 sharp swords, flying close to the ground towards Harson's. Ancient trees along their way were burst off, their branches and leaves turning into powder and scattering away. On the misty island in the sea territory, Fuller, Mo Fo, Sha Zhao, and Wu Feng released their ethereal extent, circulating their powers Upanishad. They formed groups of 2 or 3 to attack the Charteris family's warriors. Cang Yun, Cecilia, and Shang Yingyu weren't idle anymore. They scattered and vaguely surrounded Harson in the center. Be careful with those lunatics. Cang Yun's voice sounded like a giant bronze bell that reached every corner of the island. Try your best not to engage in close combat with them. They will drag you to death altogether. No one dared to ignore Cang Yun's reminder. Because just a moment ago, 2 warriors under Audrey's command were killed altogether with a warrior of the Charteris family right before they could kill him. That madman had exploded his own soul altar and created a tornado that covered the other 2 immediately. After the shock waves ceased, of course, the Charteris family's warrior was gone, but he had taken with him the 2 warriors who had attacked him all the time. The manic disciples of the Charteris family didn't have consciousness or fear. If they found that the situation couldn't be saved anymore, they would try their last attempt to take a bite of your flesh or even bone before they died. They would never let you finish your deed with ease. Thus, without waiting for Cang Yun to stress it further, when they were fighting those lunatics, they were all cautious. Because of that, although they had fought for a long time, the Cherister family had lost just 1 warrior, the one who had exploded himself. Since they didn't dare to approach the Cherister warriors, the others still had room to resist. This situation had maintained until Shi Yin and Audrey joined the fight. Significant changes were made afterward. Shortly after Audrey had agreed on the competition with Shi Yin, she had set her eyes on a member of the Charteris family. She coldly commanded the others to leave that man and then urged her power. A soul magnetic field that could cover the entire island gushed out from Audrey's lean and graceful body. In that glimpse, people felt a strong vibe in their soul. They had to pull themselves together and calm down their soul to prevent it from flying out of the soul altar. They now hallucinated that Audrey had turned into a soul vortex that released a large magnetic field to draw all their soul in. When Audrey performed her strange power Upanishad, everybody's soul altars were affected. Their energy attacks, which used to be smooth, were halted and stagnant, preventing them from using their skills. In this area, there were only 2 warriors who weren't affected by Audrey's power. They were Shi Yin and Cang Yun. Only the 2 of them had strong soul altars that Audrey's soul magnetic field couldn't affect. Thus, their powers Upanishads weren't sluggish. The warrior of the Charteris family who had to bear Audrey's soul magnetic field was at 3rd sky of ethereal god realm. He cultivated would power Upanishad. His soul was drawn out of his body, moving above his head. This man's soul was dim and gray, and it looked like a mossy, ancient tree was planted in his head. His soul didn't have any gleam of fear. Quite the contrary, it had a madly disordered soul energy fluctuation. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Would power of the five elements was urged. A terrifying commotion arose under Audrey's feet. A long, narrow climbing plant like an ivy with its branches slithered like snakes animatedly and wound around Audrey's graceful body. That plant then sprouted so many vines with teeth and started to bite and saw Audrey's beautiful thighs and delicate waist. The ancient gray tree soul of that Charteris warrior withered at a speed that the naked eye could observe. His vitality was drawn away rapidly. At the same time, the peculiar, evil vines coiling around Audrey were strengthened rapidly. They became tougher and more agile with vitality. It could be compared to the thickest armor, and it shrouded Audrey. At the same time, the toothy vines were still biting and tearing her body. It was another form of jade and rock shattering together. Each member of the Charteris family was that extreme. As long as they could kill the others, they could even destroy themselves to do that. They seemed to have no mental barrier. Audrey apparently had underestimated the craziness of the Charteris warriors. Being wound by the vines, she looked like a soft fruit growing in the center of a big tree. As the other's soul was withering, her body was squeezed and it made her look bony. However, no matter how hard the vines had tried to bite or cut her, they couldn't leave any wound on her body. People knew that the god body of the Imperial Dark Tribe warriors wasn't as strong as their soul altar. Evidently, Audrey was an exception. Her lean, soft body had an intimidating, surging energy, her snow-white skin and jade bones containing powerful tides of energy. Audrey swayed. Fire rings rolled down from her snow-white neck, turning bigger on the way. Just like hula hoops, the fire rings got bigger and slowly fell from her thighs to her ankles. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The ancient tree suddenly ignited. It wasn't the vines on her body, but the tree that jutted from the head of the Charteris warrior in front of her. That man's dim, gray soul smoked and then burned off. People could vaguely hear the shrieks and screech when his soul met death. Rings of fire expanded from her body. The vines with teeth that were squeezing her body were burned down like the snake bone. They fell off her body. She wiped the charred remains of those vines on her body in disgust. Lifting her head to look at Yin, she told him coldly, "That's the first one." Then, a cold light flared in her eyes. She flashed and disappeared shortly before reappearing in front of another Charteris warrior. She told Zhao Shan and Zhao Hai, who was fighting with him, "You guys stay away." Zhao Shan and Zhao Hai wore cold faces, but they didn't dare to say much. After nodding, they moved away and gave her the opponent. Cang Yun, Cecilia, Shang Yingyu, and the Wu brothers were surrounding Harson, but they still had time to watch. Cang Yun, Cecilia, and Shang Yingyu shivered inwardly as they were worried about Yin. The terrifying deed that Audrey had just performed made them wary in fear. Finally, they knew that it wasn't only that the ancient continent didn't shackle her that made her the leader of this team. This woman had a peculiar and unpredictable power Upanishad. At the same time, the accumulated energy in her body was pure and abundant. Apparently, she didn't have the common weakness of Imperial Dark Tribe warriors, which was a fragile body. She had used her strength to get people's approval. Seeing her kill one enemy in a short moment, Cang Yun and the two women were anxious. They doubted themselves whether or not it was a good move to support Yin. They didn't think that Yin was strong enough. Because they could see that Yin was fighting a member of the Charteris family. His power seemed to be just equal. He couldn't even take the upper hand. He has just second sky of ethereal god realm. Maybe we've evaluated his competence too highly. Wrong move. Cang Yun, Cecilia, and Shang Yingyu sighed inwardly. Yan's opponent cultivated ice power Upanishad. This Charteris warrior had ice shrouding his entire body, and even the ground under his feet was frosty. He was using his power Upanishad to create a favorable battlefield. Wherever he moved, the place then had glacier and snow that created a whole world of ice and snow. Sometimes, Hidden arrows made of sharp metal energy would shot towards Yin. This man also cultivated metal power Upanishad. However, he hadn't mastered his powers Upanishad enough to combine the two. Still, he made some mistakes. However, his real competence was stronger than the man Audrey had killed. As he could use two powers Upanishads at the same time when fighting Yin, he didn't fall into a perilous situation. He had even licked his lips and grinned fiendishly with a cruel face. He wanted to kill Yin. His eyes changed. A savage, murderous aura burst out of his chest. A piece of bloody bone emerged with the evil energy fluctuation from his body as if it could erode people's soul. His eyes were so strange as he gazed at Yin. Shortly after, a beam of violent soul energy shot out of his eyes and entered Yin's soul altar. Yin was shaken, his face a little strange. Abruptly, divine light shot out radiantly from his eyes. What he was waiting for was this moment. Chapter 1150. The Bloody Bone has a new owner. Chapter 1150. The Bloody Bone has a new owner _. Before Yin had entered the island, he had sensed a strange energy that had stirred up his acupuncture points. It was the wicked formation that Harson's team had created, White Bone Refining Blood Ghost Grave. He jumped into that evil formation and the familiar aura became more intense to him. The thick, pungent Blood Sea and the distorting soul attack were the unique abilities of the Blood Soul Sea. The ghost grave built by the blood-dripping bones wasn't broken. Even a piece wasn't chipped off when his sunlight attacked it. The tenacious bones had surprised him a lot. After that moment, he confirmed that the bones that built the ghost grave weren't from the god body of Harson's team. At Harson's team's realm and power, their body could never create blood-dripping bones that were that hard. Each of those bloody bones had a murderous, malicious aura that could shoot up into the sky. They seemed to carry a terrifyingly brutal mood that could sink people's souls and then occupy their minds. Those bones belonged to someone much stronger. That person had to belong to the bloodthirsty's bloodline, someone cultivating death power Upanishad. His realm was likely extremely high, and his body was almost unbreakable. He had developed his skeleton and filled it with the malignant energy of earth and heaven, which hadn't faded after so many years. Harson and his 18 subordinates had bloody bones for each that they had to use their soul energy, blood, and chi to nurture. They used and condensed the brutal, murderous chi in their bodies to create the White Bone Refining Blood Ghost Grave with those bones as the keys. Boom! The bloody bone inside the opponent standing in front of Yin released a negative, ruthless energy fluctuation, running directly into his brain and giving him bloody illusions. He saw the blood sea swarming over and sinking him in the warm, viscous blood. The strong smell of blood filled his nostrils. Islets of white bones emerged and gave him an evil, wicked impression. These illusions were what he had experienced that year when he sank his body in the blood pond for the first time he had descended to Grace Mainland. However, after so many years, he wasn't the man of that old day. The illusion of the blood pond couldn't hypnotize his mind. Quite the contrary, while his thoughts were flickering, his acupuncture points suddenly had a strong suction force. Bang, bang, bang. Evil energy fluctuations arose from that warrior. A blood-dripping bone with a murderous aura shooting up into the sky tried to escape his body uncontrollably. The man discolored. He hastened to gather his power and spirit to control that bloody bone. However, right at this moment, a flow of negative energy that was 10 times more powerful than his swarmed over him like a real blood sea and intruded deep into his soul. His eyes went blank. He stood still as if he was confined by space power Upanishad. Swish! The bone that he had refined for years suddenly danced and stirred up his internal organs, creating bleeding holes in his body. The warrior looked blank as if he didn't feel pain. He was idle and didn't move an inch. He seemed to lose his soul to the hand of death. No one could notice that a beam of soul consciousness had broken into this man's soul altar when the blood sea swarmed over him. It swayed deep in his brain and took the secrets from his memory. A sealed, secure memory was taken away, and it released the most mysterious, hidden horrible pieces of memory. Many years ago, when this man was still a warrior at King God Realm, one elder of the Charteris family had taken him to a hidden cave where he had to offer a wisp of his soul seal to Harson, who was also a young man at that moment. After that, he had to vow to worship Harson for the rest of his life. Together with him, there were 17 other teenagers sent to the cave. They all had to give Harson a wisp of their soul that connected to Harson's soul. It was an evil title deed. When Harson's soul was destroyed, they would all be killed and they would follow him. Their deaths would come instantly. But if their souls perished, it didn't do anything to Harson's soul. That man could still live safe and sound. Apparently, this wasn't a fair contract. After that, this group of 18 teenagers was each given a bloody bone. They heard that the bones belonged to a formidable expert with a tremendous evil aura. The Charteris family had studied for years to understand the mysteries and get the essence of it. Each of them received a bloody bone and planted it into their bodies. When the bloody bone got into their abdomen, each of them had to endure the most terrible pain in this world, which made them cry and screech for a long time. The fusion progress was so strenuous and painful. They had spent 8 years with a lot of precious materials to finish this bone fusion. Then, they were taught to use the white bone refining blood ghost grave, making tests for the evil power they got from the bones. Gradually, they became stronger, and they were the most loyal henchmen of Harson. It felt like Yin had just watched the experiences of that man's whole life. His soul consciousness tied that piece of memory and watched all things the man had experienced. Yin finally confirmed his presumption. That year, when the 8 subordinates of Bloodthirsty were defeated in the battle against the God Clan, the Charteris family had tried their best to kill the warrior who cultivated death power Upanishad. Afterward, they had taken his bones and refined it with evil techniques before implanting them into the bodies of Harson's subordinates. The bones then helped them promote the most wicked secret formation that greatly assisted Harson in fighting. He knew what he wanted to know. Yin's thoughts flickered and a cold aura overflowed his opponent's soul altar. It was the poison from the poison-dipped cold bead, filling his soul altar and melting it down. His soul evaporated like mist and returned to earth and heaven. Crack, crack. The bones stirred inside his body and crushed him. All of a sudden, it flew out and fell towards Yin. When he grabbed the bone, Yin had a gleam of sadness in his eyes as he sighed. The owner of the bloody bone was an expert cultivating death power Upanishad to the top level. Although he had fallen for many years, his bones still had frightening powers with a terrible aura that could simulate the effects of the blood-soul sea. However, even though he was such a character, he was gone. Yin felt so sorry for the bloodthirsty force. While he didn't notice, his soul altar spun. The death power Upanishad sent out a magical beam of energy that could trigger some resonance. Swish, swish. 2 blood lights flashed and flew towards him like blood lightning. They were the other 2 blood-dripping bones. Although the bodies of the Charteris warrior who had exploded himself and the one Audrey had killed were gone, the bloody bones remained. They were guided by the energy from Yin's acupuncture points, and they gathered in front of him. Even though these bones had been refined for years by the elders of the Charteris, they still had a deep, everlasting fixation. Because of this undying fixation, although Harson's 18 warriors had fused with them, they couldn't control the bones as much as they pleased. Through the years, the deep fixation had been imprinted in the bones so that they would never be able to wash it away. Cecilia, Cang Yun also paid attention to Yin while fighting Harson. They were so baffled. The fight between Yin and his opponent was strange, indeed. It was obvious that their power was equal. However, they got the result of that battle quickly. They didn't see clearly what had happened over there. When they noticed the commotion, they found that Yin's opponent had his soul perish and Yin was taking the bone from that man's body. All they could see were the blood-dripping bone in Yin's hand and 2 more floating in front of him. This scene was strange and evil. Even Cang Yun now felt a chill in his heart. Immortal, Sha Zhao, Wu Feng, and Jiao Shan were solemn as they watched Yin draw his opponent's bone. They felt the hair on the back of their heads raising. In their eyes, Yin was much more frightening than Audrey. No one recognized Harson with his terrified eyes. Watching Yin from a distance, he was screaming in his head. No one understood the meaning of the bones Yin was holding better than Harson. Each of those blood-dripping bones belonged to the skeleton of a brutal demon. The Charteris family had scraped those bones and soaked them in different kinds of evil blood to give them the unrivaled, ruthless power. Why were they in his hand? How did he take them out? Harson screamed in his head, his face distorting. He could feel the bone in his own body choking him by the throat and giving him a faint pain. He knew that it was so wrong. The second one. Suddenly, Audrey's arrogant, cold voice arose one more time. A wave of surging soul power arose and sent flames up into the sky. Another member of the Charteris family was killed. Audrey had used her flaming origin to burn his soul altar. That was how he lost his life seal. However, it wasn't easy to Audrey this time. Before he died, he had exploded his god body and used a blood-dripping bone to attack her. With his explosive energy and seething blood, he sent away the blood chi that could shake the sky. Blood splashed on her body. She now had a pale tinge on her icy, arrogant face. She seemed to get hurt. However, the bloody bone wasn't smashed under her power. It floated in front of her, as it was lonely that it had lost its master. She shouted, and a look was shot to her from layers of obstacles. Audrey snorted, looking back and challenging him. "I hope you aren't too weak." Boom! An evil, hostile aura emitted from the bone in front of her. The piece of bone that had hurt her became wild. While its murderous aura shot up into the sky, it trembled for a while before shooting toward the direction her beautiful eyes had sent away the challenge. Just like other bones, this piece of bone also flew toward Yin, hovering in front of him inside a scarlet halo. Audrey looked shocked, but she didn't know what had happened. She just looked at Yin in fright. Having the same panic were Cang Yun, Cecilia, the members of the Charteris family, and Harson. Impossible! Impossible! Harson suddenly cried as if he was completely insane. Thick spikes grew on his skeletal body abruptly. Scaly silver armor arose on his skin. The energy of his god body doubled in just a blink of an eye. He rushed through Cang Yun and directly attacked Yin. Chapter 1151. Immortal Body. Chapter 1151. Immortal Body, _ Harson's crazy, ear-piercing scream reverberated on the chaotic island. At this moment, everybody could see Harson risking his life. With the undying god body, Harson's power had rocketed. He glided and pressed Cang Yun like a cold lightning strike attack. The earth under his feet was torn apart, creating a deep abyss. Many rocks by the beach exploded. Harson's power was bursting out to the utmost. Yin was holding a bone in his hand while the other three floating in front of him. He looked absorbed in his thoughts. Cang Yun, Cecilia, and Shang Yingyu had lost their target. They were baffled as they looked at Yin from a distance without a clue. As Audrey had just killed one warrior, seeing Harson aim at Yin in his undying god body, she didn't continue to find another target but watched Yin too. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As Harson was coming, the four bloody bones in front of Yin suddenly released a wiggling energy fluctuation. Yin frowned and grabbed the three floating bones with his free left hand. He discreetly urged his energy and sent it into those blood-dripping bones. The blood-dripping bones didn't have only the fixation of the warrior who had cultivated death power Upanishad, but also an exquisite, complicated formation drawn by blood that seemed to be controlled by Harson. As Yin received the memory of the enemy, he knew that the formation drawn on the bloody bone was the foundation of the evil contract. Harson had used this evil formation to control 18 warriors under his command. His soul had connected with their souls to rule them, and at the same time, he could control their blood-dripping bones too. It was a sinister plan that the Charteris had to use that involved those gory bones. The evil formation on the four bones sent out energy fluctuations. The bloodlines wiggled, making the bones struggle and attempting to fly to Harson. Harson came like an evil spirit. A pointy tip of a bone emerged from the abdomen of his skeletal body. The brutal, Surging energy torrentially circulated around Harson and made his undying god body even thinner. Shi Yin was astounded. Harson's god body got thinner in just a blink of an eye. It was very similar to when Shi Yin used the rampage. Being the core member and the outstanding talent of the Charteris family, what he had harvested from the bloody bone wasn't something that his subordinates could have. This man also had special knowledge of using the negative energy through his piece of bloody bone. He could use the bone to urge the negative energy and push his body to the rampage state. It surprised Shi Yin a lot. And the piece of bone hiding in his body wasn't really similar to the ones that Shi Yin was holding. Harson's bone was much bigger and longer with more fiercer energy. More importantly, that piece of bloody bone had completely fused with him. It wasn't affected by the energy from Shi Yin's acupuncture points. It had become a part of Harson's god body, a wicked precious weapon, and a piece of his soul. The bloody bone in Harson's body was the foundation of the skeleton of the expert who had cultivated death power Upanishad. The Charteris family had refined it and made it the eye of the formation, which had the key formation of that evil formation. When he urged the energy from the bloody bone, the 4 bones in Shi Yin's grip were shaking. The bones released a resistant force as they wanted to get rid of Shi Yin's hand. Cang Yun, Cecilia, Shi Yin, and Audrey didn't have an opponent currently, so they all looked at that area, their faces changing in fear. They were so frightened because of the power Harson was showing. They all found how Harson could affect the bloody bones. They could sense a terrible, evil energy from Harson's god body. They knew that Harson, when he was crazy, would urge the power of the bloody bone as he wanted to strike Shi Yin with his most brutal attack. Cang Yun and Audrey were frightened. They now knew that they had underestimated Harson's toughness. The real competence of this lunatic from the Charteris family was much stronger than what they had thought. This man had the power to fight against Haig. Cang Yun and Audrey suddenly recognized that some rumors they had heard were not just lies. Many people of the God clan said that Harson and Haig didn't get along well. He didn't put Haig in his eyes. Cang Yun and Audrey had heard about this, but they had never thought it was true. However, now they knew that Harson did have the power to fight Haig. Harson had transformed into the undying god body, and he was mobilizing the energy in the bloody bone. He was showing his earth-destroying power that made Cang Yun and Audrey think that they didn't have the power to confront him directly. Everybody was dumbstruck to see the power Harson had accumulated. As Cang Yun and Audrey had sensitive soul consciousnesses, they discreetly sensed and found that the energy Harson had condensed was as powerful as what a second sky of ethereal god realm could reach. Unbelievable. Nobody thought that Shi Yin at second sky of ethereal god realm could resist Harson. No one favored Shi Yin anymore. Cang Yun, Cecilia, and Shang Yu discolored in fright. They hurried to dash forward to help Shi Yin deal with Harson. What are you waiting for? Stop Harson. If Harson doesn't die, none of us can dodge this culpa. Cang Yun's fat face twisted. Unrivaled energy fluctuations gushed out from him. In just a blink of an eye, he crossed Cecilia and Shang Yu like a shooting cannonball. Mo Fo, Wu Feng, and Fuller were standing close to Shi Yin. They discolored upon seeing the savage Harson. None of them answered Cang Yun's call. Quite the contrary, Sha Zhao, the one who held a grudge against Shi Yin, dashed over to help him fight Harson. Of course, no one could confront Harson alone. Everybody knew how formidable he was. The evil, murderous aura shot over torrentially. Harson's undying god body was also bony with many spikes like a ferocious hedgehog. He stormed in the sky, his terrifying energy and dark clouds shading the entire sky. He gave people heavy pressure. Under such pressure, many people couldn't breathe and they couldn't even stand upright. Being Harson's real target, Shi Yin was under an enormous mountain. His knees made crack sounds and slowly sank as if he was about to kneel down. Everybody screamed in their heads. Roar! All of a sudden, Shi Yin let out a wild roar like a strong, savage beast. First, a wave of crazy, bloodthirsty, brutal, fearless, and destructive energy burst out like a wrecking, terrible flood. A blood column that naked eye could see shot right up into the sky from Shi Yin's body. The bone-cracking sounds reached people's ears. Boom! Boom, boom. Similar evil-looking spikes jutted out from Shi Yan's shoulders, elbows, and knees. The natural armor emerged from his skin. Shi Yan's god body appeared like a demogorgon who had experienced thousands of battles. This shape of him showcased the beauty of the explosive power. Immortal Demon Clan. Immortal Demon Clan. Immortal Body. Audrey, Cecilia, and Cang Yun shouted at the same time. As Sha Zhao was about to join the battle, he was swept away by the wave of crazy, bloodthirsty, brutal, fearless, and destructive energy. He seemed to be held, but he struggled to take another step forward. Everybody was petrified. After so many years, today, on this ancient continent, they finally saw the Immortal Demon Clan, one of the legendary Great Four creatures. The Immortal Body, the only thing that could rival the Undying God Body, appeared in their views like that. While the onlookers were still frightened, a massive bloody hand seal arose and pounded on Harson. Death Seal. Harson had a dazzling light in his eyes as he shouted. Boom! The intimidatingly crazy energy in Harson's godbody was urged, impacting the Death Seal. A loud explosion that had almost stopped people's hearts from beating reverberated. The space between Harson and Shi Yan suddenly collapsed as if it had sunk into the void that they couldn't see. People then felt that their sight was somehow strangely distorted. Harson descended from the sky like a giant hammer pounding on the ground. Immediately, he sank into the ground of the ancient continent 20 meters in front of Shi Yan. Shi Yan kneeled. His spikes pierced through the earth as he panted with blood-red eyes. The intimidation of Harson's power was beyond his estimation. This man was worth the name of the God Clan's Son of Heaven. He could surely compare to Haig. Besides the lucky opportunity of having the origin and lack of placidity, he wasn't weaker than Haig at all. He dared to look down on Haig because he was full of confidence. He wasn't afraid of any young expert of his clan, and only he dared not to put Haig in his eyes. Although Harson was at ethereal God Realm, he could gather the energy of a second sky of incipient God Realm expert. This man was really extraordinarily tyrannical. He was worth the title of the future leader of the mad Charteris family. Shi Yan touched the ground with one of his knees and quickly gathered energy. In the massive hole in front of him, Harson's terrifying energy was rocketing continually. Evidently, he was accumulating energy for the next tremendous attack. Cecilia, Immortal, Audrey, and the others were bewildered as they looked at Shi Yan as if they were watching a beast. Except for Cang Yun, nobody knew Shi Yan's real identity. His sudden transformation was unpredictable to anybody. Audrey's persistent arrogance was reduced. She looked at Shi Yan's new shape and felt much better. No wonder why he's so strong. Turns out that he's from the Immortal Demon Clan. I knew it. How could a low human dare to provoke my eminence? It's easy to understand now. Audrey sighed. When she found out that Shi Yan had the immortal demon body, her mental barrier was lifted. Immortal, Wu Feng, and Zhao Shan exchanged looks. They could see a shock in each other's eyes. Now when they looked at Shi Yan, they all showed respect. Although the immortal demon clan of the Great Four creatures had been secluding for so many years, the legend of this clan's power and superiority was everlasting. Every strong clan knew about the intimidation of this clan. They knew that this clan was the prominent clan that could resist the God Clan. Immortal's team's eyes brightened. Chapter 1152. Frantic Showdown. Chapter 1152. Frantic Showdown. Shi Yan bursting out was a thrill to everybody. While Haig, Phelps, and Mia were dashing toward them, Harson had shown his real competence, which was against the rules of nature. In this challenge, Immortal and Wu Feng hoped that they could finish this battle soon, so they could save more energy to deal with Haig. At the same time, the power that Shi Yan suddenly performed, which could rival Harson's, was no doubt a tonic to people that cheered them up. Everybody gazed at Shi Yan. With one knee touching the ground, his entire body was covered in armor made of tough keratin, giving people the beauty of power. His spikes gave people a feeling of something so sharp that it could break anything. Waves of evil, bloodthirsty energy gushed out from his god body. His energy was so condensed that it almost couldn't be real. Like a bunch of sinister ghosts, they flew around him, inaudibly roaring and crying as if they wanted to crush and tear the world apart. Boom! In the loud explosions that shook the entire land and mountains, Harson's bony hedgehog body got out of the ground, and he stood in front of Yin once again. Deep inside Harson's pupils was a dark, sinister halo. A piece of bone jutted out from his abdomen, which was carved in exquisite formation. The evil formation spun like a vortex. It was nibbling and devouring Harson's blood and flesh, making it more terrifying. Roar! Roar! The roaring of a beast who was about to be extinct came from the mouths of the remaining Charteris family's warriors. As they had pledged to serve Harson with their whole lives and offered him a wisp of soul seal, they currently acted like wild, enraged beasts. The cold, crazy gleam appeared deep in their pupils, making them fighting puppets without consciousness. Everyone was shivering upon seeing them at this moment. The power of each warrior of the Charteris family increased by 30%. Fo, Fuller, and the others fighting them had to discolor when they burst out as if they weren't afraid of death. Fo's team had to dodge. Harson's warriors roared and gathered by Harson like a horde of evil dragons. The bones in their abdomen tore their skin to jut out of their bodies, releasing terrible, brutal energy. They are burning their souls. Audrey couldn't help but shout, her face icy cold. She reminded people to be more cautious. It was worth their reputation of the mad Charteris family. Cang Yun, Cecilia, Wu Feng, and the others changed their visages. They were so surprised and instinctively had such thoughts in their minds. Harson was accumulating energy while his malicious eyes gazed at Yin. After his subordinates gathered, he still didn't move, but the frightening aura on his body was rising higher and higher. And the warriors of the Charteris family also had their power increase, making their general competence much higher. Damn! Cang Yun screamed in fright, his face getting serious for the first time. Harson can draw their energy, so he still can increase his power. Everybody else discolored. When Harson struck his strongest attack, his abundant energy could be compared to second sky of incipient God Realm expert, which was already terrifying. And now as he could gather energy from his subordinates through the sinister contract, how terribly strong could he be? Yin is also increasing his energy. Cecilia covered her mouth in awe. She looked so disbelieving, her sexy body shivering slightly. Everybody looked at Yin, their eyes hot. They were all shocked and baffled. Many of them couldn't help but shout in fright. Yin now had garnet eyes while blood mist covering him, and it diffused the pungent smell of fresh blood. Brutal, wild, bloodthirsty, and fearless energies generated and intertwined to create demons that looked real. The terrifying energy magnetic field he had built was also expanding and increasing, which wasn't less than Harson's. People gawked and dropped their jaws. No one knew that the essence chi of the 4 Charteris warriors and the 2 from Audrey's side had flooded Yin's acupuncture points. He didn't filter or refine it to absorb, but used it directly. He forcefully compressed the energy and used it all to create the Death God domain from Third Sky of Rampage. The essence chi of the 6 dead warriors at Third Sky of Ethereal God Realm was used in this battle in conjunction with his own terrifying abilities. Together, they increased his aura. If he had remained the human form, he wouldn't have supported such power. He would have exploded and cracked his lungs and heart. However, in the form of the immortal demon body, he had immortal demon blood running through his veins with immense power. With this domineeringly, tenacious body, he had the ability to join this interesting battle. Harson had used the wicked contract to collect his subordinates' energy, while Yin used the ability of his devouring power Upanishad to capture the essence chi of the dead warriors. Both of them were using extreme methods to rocket their power in just a short time. Don't act rashly. Seeing Cecilia, Shang Yingyu, and Sha Zhao silently approaching Harson and Yin to try to affect their battle, Audrey shouted to stop them. Unless you guys could boost your energy to their level, you will only get hurt if you go there. Cang Yun's fat face shivered as he said, "She's right. Unless you guys could reach their level, you shouldn't come near them. Your bodies and powers aren't enough to endure their attacks." You should just stay away. Although Cecilia's group didn't believe in Audrey's opinions, they knew that Cang Yun wouldn't lie. They hesitated and then stopped. At the same time, Harson and Yin were like two wounded beasts roaring and howling. Earth-shaking energy arose from their bodies and expanded everywhere as if they wanted to destroy the entire island. They had created a storm energy magnetic field that could crush everything in its way to nothing. Immortal, Showdown, and Cecilia were terrified. They tried to dodge and use the god power to condense protective light cages. They reluctantly resisted the shockwaves of that energy storm. They staggered as if they were drunk. They wore unhealthy red faces. Apparently, they had consumed a lot of energy just to protect themselves. So strong. All of them shouted in fear. The storm energy that Yin generated and Harson's energy and aura had created hurt their bodies even though they were standing far from them. If they had stood near the center of the storm, would their bodies be torn apart? In the chaotic situation when rocks and sand were twirling everywhere together with a thunderstorm, people couldn't see Yin and Harson. However, they could see Audrey and Cang Yun standing still by the edge of that energy storm. They had to agree that Cang Yun and Audrey were much stronger than them. They weren't surprised to see Audrey because Audrey was the princess of the Imperial Dark Tribe. She should have this ability. They were astounded and curious about Cang Yun, so they started to guess his identity. The energy shockwaves are so tremendous. Mia of the God Clan halted while flying through the woods. She looked aghast. Phelps, Haig, and Peyton also stopped. They discolored, looking at the area ahead of them. They all wore dark and solemn faces. The energy fluctuations ahead was so fierce that the barrier between the two territories couldn't hold it within. This group was scared about the shockwave reaching them. Such great energy fluctuation could be seen in the battle of the incipient God Realm experts. Who could do that? Phelps wore a sinister, cunning face. The Charteris family has so many dark and secret techniques and Harson is a lunatic. One of them should be him. He got this ability. But who is his opponent? The woman who killed you, Jia, confirmed Mia. Haig didn't say anything, his eyes cold and placid. He squinted and tried to sense. All of a sudden, he arched his eyebrows and hissed, "No, it's not true." Everybody looked at him. "It's not the woman who killed you, Jia. It's the man you said, the one from the Immortal Demon Clan." Haig was scared. The placidity in his eyes was broken. He took a deep breath and lowered his voice. Aside from being a member of the Immortal Demon Clan, he's also an heir of one of the bloodthirsty's inheritances. He's cultivated Death Power Upanishad. What a coincidence. Death Power Upanishad? Mia's soft body shivered. People rumored that the Charteris family annihilated Xian, his blood brother, and used his skeleton to create the blood-dripping bones. They then carved the secret formation of the God Clan, making Harson keep the key bone that controls his subordinates. That's how Harson could be so strong. Well, we would have never expected such a coincidence. We must kill this man. We won't give him room to grow. Otherwise, no one can estimate the consequences. Haig arched his brows and said harshly, "I'll kill him myself." Mia and Phelps were surprised and then they nodded heavily. "If you do it yourself, I'm sure he can't escape. He shouldn't appear here. He shouldn't expose his identity that early," said Phelps in a dark voice. "Both of them are strong. If I want to deal with him, I have to use my best powers too." Haig darkened his face as he shouted, "Move. We have to get there quickly." Dash. Energy rose in the center of the island in waves of immense, hazy light. The island had earth-shattering energy. Where Harson and Yin were fighting was a place that people couldn't observe. The entire sky was covered by light curtains that shielded people's vision. Each member of the Charteris family sat on the ground as if they were actually petrified. Columns of energy burst into the sky from their heads, which Harson's soul controlled. They were moving like devil dragons that wrecked the area around them into ruins. The ground under their bodies expanded terrifying tremors. Yan's body was like a stone hovering inside a blood sea. His mind flickered, shifting the abilities of the Death Power Upanishad, which made the energy turn into massive blood hands and shooting blood meteors that bombarded Harson. The sinister demons generated by the negative energy were entangling with the air columns made of the energy of the Charteris warriors. They started to attack them like the evilest, feng-shuing monsters. Yin and Harsin were fighting each other as if no one was watching. As they were equally strong, they had struck each other too fiercely, and the island under their feet was about to break into pieces. They made the earth and heaven energy in this area change dramatically, triggering the wonders that take place on this ancient continent. Chapter 1153. The World of Five-Colored Light. Chapter 1153. The World of Five-Colored Light _ While they didn't notice, the tough barriers that connected the north, south, east, and west territories of the ancient continent had shattered. The abundant earth and heaven energy from the four territories swarmed and squeezed each other, flooding torrentially to the center. The sealed center became vaguely discernible. They could even see what was always hidden there. Auspicious clouds hovered in the sky and drifted to the horizon. Divine grand mountains jutted up and pierced the clouds. Waterfalls and streams spread and meandered, scattered here, and there were clear water lakes that they could see to the bottom. Mist and steam wound above the water surface, moisturizing the peculiar flowers and florists. All of them had created a dreamy, unreal fairyland. Immortal, Cecilia, and the others stood by the edge of the island. They now looked dull and mesmerized as they observed the miracle land of the center. Their eyes were gazing with infatuation at the hazy center. They looked dreamy as if they were having a beautiful dream. They had thrown the fierce, crazy battle between Yin and Harsin behind their heads. Even the two experts who could gather earth and heaven energy here, Cang Yun and Audrey, couldn't help but observe the center after struggling in the energy storm. They were so happy that they looked almost crazy, shivering in thrill. The area they were watching was what they had craved for when they came here. It was the center that they had to visit. It was the most mysterious and precious area of the ancient continent. That piece of land was called the Spirit Herbal Garden of the Universe. Rumors said that precious treasures were scattered here and there. Every little grass they might step on could contain the surprising spirit chi, which could be a priceless ingredient in some high-level life stars. The original incipient grade spirit herbs, woods, crystals, and gemstones that were scarce in other life stars and were things that people had to be crazy for were abundant in the center of this ancient continent. In all the times, the original incipient grade materials were the top precious cultivating materials that the warriors had always dreamed of. As the center was perceptible, the barriers between the territories had disappeared. Everybody could get in and find their opportunity. All the warriors became thrilled as they found the strange, magical center. They were excited to look at the center with desires. They were ready to get over there. Boom, boom, boom. The loud explosions of the hammer breaking the mountain arose like a heavy punch pounding on people's heart. Immortal and Cecilia were shivering and turning pale. They were so frightened as they looked around. The immense island exploded in the middle. Mountains collapsed. The island was now like a big tree that exploded. The ground looked like a cake cut into many pieces by a sharp knife, drifting away in the sea territory. Immortal, Jiaoshan, Jiao Hai, Cecilia, Shangyu, Sha Zhao, Fuller, the four guards of the Imperial Dark Tribe, Cang Yun, Audrey, and the members of the Charteris family scattered as the island broke apart. Standing on different pieces of land, they drifted away. The barriers between the four territories were torn, revealing the center. Barriers and restrictions vanished. It was the signal that they could enter the center. The warriors following Audrey shouted and gathered by her when the island cracked and drifted apart. They wanted to go with Audrey to the center to take advantage of her ability to sense the commotion of living beings to search for more treasures. Immortal, Shangyu, and the others were searching for Yin, and they found that the thick mist arose on the sea. They could hear the sea rumbling, but they couldn't locate Yin. Yin was still having a deadly fight with Harsin. They understood that even if they found Yin, it would be tough to go with him to the center. Many warriors hesitated for a while, and then gathered around Audrey. They decided to stick with her. Only Cecilia and Shangyu hadn't moved yet. They hurried to find Yin as they still wanted to advance or go back altogether with him. Cang Yun had already disappeared into the thick mist. No one knew where he had gone or could sense his aura. Big woods surfed above the water. Fuller, Immortal, Wu Feng, and the others moved towards Audrey's piece of land rapidly. They hurried to get on the island and gathered by Audrey. They were so excited, and they urged Audrey to move faster, taking them to the center. They temporarily forgot Yin at this moment. As soon as they got to the center, they would encounter a lot of death traps. Although the God Clan was strong, they couldn't compare to the fatal restrictions there, which meant that they wouldn't need to be afraid of the God Clan's pursuit anymore. Without the God Clan's threat, how could they have free time to care about others? The reason why they had to gather was to resist the God Clan and got over that challenge before the center opened. Today, they thought that they had finally gotten over that challenge. Do you really think that we can avoid the God Clan when we enter the center? Audrey sneered, her face cold. Naive. The center has the most precious land. Eventually, we will get there. When that happens, we will encounter them for sure. Fuller and Immortal gave a dry, embarrassed smile, but they didn't oppose her. Hague is near, Audrey snorted. Before the center has opened completely, we must strike them hard first. Even if we don't go to the center, we still have to face them sooner or later. While Yin and Harson were fighting, Audrey had sent her soul consciousness far away to sense Hague, Phelps, and Mia's commotions. She knew that they would be here soon. As Audrey found that their whole team didn't come here, she thought that they should seize this chance to strike them hard. She had made up her mind, so she thought that no one should question or object her ideas. She shouted, "Anyone who wishes to go with me, follow me. Once we get to the center, I will not care about the warriors who don't go with me, or whether they are dead or alive." The 4 Imperial Dark Men gathered by Audrey, their faces solemn. Audrey picked an emerald hairpin from her bun of hair, which had flame carvings supported by purple clouds. This emerald hairpin suddenly had torrential powers like a rising tide. It transformed and enlarged as it was placed by their feet, like a jade pillar supporting the sky. The aimless, drifting piece of land was controlled like a boat now had a navigator. The purple clouds on the emerald hairpin seeped into the ground like a flame. This piece of land was now a treasure of Audrey that she could control using her soul. She drove it and moved in a direction deep into the thick mist. Cecilia and Shang Yu were standing in another drifting piece of land. They saw only the hazy sky. Vaguely, they saw the divine Grand Mountain from a very far distance. They knew that it was the center and their destination. However, the 2 women didn't act recklessly. They were anxious as they wanted to see Yin. They wanted to track the direction by the energy explosions. Immortal and Wu Feng decided to stick with Audrey, centering her once more time. But these 2 women didn't do that. They deemed Yin as their backbone and the one they should count on. They acknowledged Yin as the leading role only. The barrier is down. It's good for us, though. Hague's eyes were so harsh and cold. Abruptly, a divine, powerful energy fluctuation emerged from his body. He had transformed into the undying god body in just a blink of an eye. Beams of 5-colored light radiated from Hague's body and moved around him. The power of the 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, rose and generated in Hague's body like the circle of perfect power with brilliance. Hague's eyes were blindingly brilliant. While his thoughts changed, a bright halo floated behind his head and gave him the impression of the ancient deity that low creatures couldn't trespass. The divine light in gold, green, white, red, and yellow hues held the power and rules of 5 elements that connected, intertwined and overlapped each other by the light power Upanishad to create a world of the 5-colored light world behind him. It was changing continually and giving Hague a pure, solemn aura of the powerful, tyrannical imperial lord of the world of light. The world of 5-colored light holding the rules of the 5 elements suddenly pressed down. Above the island, they then saw the massive gold sword, the green ancient tree, the sacred white sea, the red sun, and the precious earthy yellow land. The energy of the 5 elements energy rose and flooded the entire area. The giant gold sword, the divine green tree, the white sacred sea, the red sun, In the yellow land were the 5 treasures of the 5 elements. They scattered, flashed, and then disappeared in the thick mist. Oh gosh. Not good. It's Haig, Fuller, Imofo, Wu Feng, and the others gathering around Audrey discolored in fright and screamed. They saw the 5 elements' treasures ere the thick mist and pressed down on them like giant meteors. This kind of earth-destroying aura had suffocated them. The low-realm warriors couldn't even stand straight. They had to bend down and have subdued feelings that made them want to bend to their knees and bow. This pressure suffocated people. The world of 5-colored light. Audrey's face was stiff and cold, frightening energy fluctuating in one of her bright eyes. She let out a cold shout, placing her jade-like finger on her glabella. An imperial lotus throne made of 7-colored crystals floated up. This shining and sparkling imperial throne was made of dozens of thousands of small crystals. Each of them was a precious treasure of earth and heaven with different secret domains of powers Upanishad. This was the marvelous treasure of the imperial dark tribe. Inside that fulgent imperial throne was a dancing soul flame that had just turned into Audrey's image. It was her co-soul that had fused with God-blessed mainland's origin. It could control the changes of earth and heaven with the power of heaven flames. Her co-soul sat neatly on the crystal lotus throne. Abruptly, the throne released the endless fire of karma that then supported the throne to fight against the world of 5-colored light. Dark God Imperial Throne? Everybody screamed in awe as they felt that the terrifying pressure from the world of 5-colored light was reduced a lot and they could stand up now. The Dark God Imperial Throne was the top precious treasure of the Imperial Dark Tribe. It was the root of God-blessed mainland. Only the members of the Imperial Dark Tribe with the purest blood who had been approved by God-blessed mainland could control it. It was very famous among the original incipient-grade weapons. It could boost the secret techniques and powers Upanishad of the Imperial Dark Tribe. Chapter 1154, Burning Purgatory. Chapter 1154, Burning Purgatory _ Imperial Dark Tribe. Haig hid in the middle of the 5-colored clouds and shouted. His eyes became dazzling as he cried. Mia, Phelps, and Peyton looked stern as they stood by him. They were also standing on a piece of the broken island. They leaped up, moved through the thick mist, and appeared in front of Audrey's team. Mia and Phelps wore a solemn face. They looked at the Dark God Imperial Throne in between 2 small drifting lands. They seemed to understand something all of a sudden. The Imperial Dark Tribe was a magical race that could compare to the God Clan among thousands of races. Billions of years had passed, and they had always held a crucial role in the cosmos. A long, long time ago, the Imperial Dark Tribe was the overlord of many other races, and they ruled the big star areas. The Imperial Dark Tribe and the Heavenly Monster Tribe fought a bloody battle that resulted in the terrible loss of many experts. The Imperial Dark Tribe got tied down, and they didn't dare to cause any big commotion later on. Because of this, the God Clan had the chance to rule this universe. Currently, the God Clan was the strongest, and they didn't dare to look down on the Imperial Dark Tribe. The God Legions had never dared to reach the Imperial Dark Tribe's territory. The God Clan and Imperial Dark Tribe had continued their tacit understanding that they wouldn't touch each other. They both wanted to avoid disputes that could lead to earth-shattering situations they couldn't manage. However, because of this ancient continent, the 2 races showed themselves in this place. Eventually, they had parted to opposite parties that fought with each other for the treasures and the secret of the ancient continent. Haig shouted, and then quickly sobered. He retrieved the blinding divine light in his eyes. The world of 5-colored light quietly changed again. Now, it was a brilliant 5-colored light divine boat. The divine boat was made of 5-colored divine light with the powers of 5 elements that was filled with the solemn aura of God that low creatures didn't dare to trespass. The boat floated above the Dark God Imperial Throne. You killed Jia, didn't you? Haig looked at the light divine boat, which was another form of the world of 5-colored light and was floating quietly. It seemed to gather more energy. True. Audrey swiftly glided through them and stood arrogantly on the edge of the small island. Her Dark God Imperial Throne was floating above her. She faced Haig without fear. You've broken the secret agreement between the two races, Haig said calmly. The one who tore the agreement wasn't me. It was your clan. Yu Jia took his team to attack me. Of course, I have to kill him, Audrey sneered. Who took action first is not important. What is important is that you've killed my clansmen. It's enough. Haig smiled. Thus, you can't blame me. The Imperial Dark Tribe has been secluding for years. You think you can compete with our clan. Sooner or later, you will show yourself and rise the storm. I don't find that it's strange if you aim at our clan today. His eyes emitted the brilliant light once again. Boom, boom. The dazzling light divine boat had explosions reverberating like thunderclaps. The divine boat moved with tremendous energy that could break the entire sky. Abruptly, it struck the dark god imperial throne. Light ribbons fluttered. The 5-colored gusts of wind shot like a meteor from the divine boat together with yellow arrows, brutal lightning bolts, surging flames, a rushing river, and grand mountains. All together, they wanted to crush the dark god imperial throne. Desolate belongs to no one. If the god clan can come here, so can we. We don't care if you want to use Desolate to kill the prodigies of the other clans. But Yu Jia dared attack me. He was blind, so he deserved death. Audrey sneered while changing her power Upanishad. The dark god imperial throne changed all of a sudden and created a sinister dark abyss where winds howled and cried. The commotions in there sounded like it was the house of countless wailing ghosts that was as horrible as hell. This was the world that the dark god imperial throne had created. It was the dark night Purgatory. It had connected directly to the mysterious dark abyss of God-blessed mainland, where she could release many evil spirits and demons of the underworld. Her dark god imperial throne wasn't weaker than the light divine boat of Haig. Her demons were slowly covering and devouring the abilities derived from 5 elements power. Haig and Audrey were both the future leaders of the God Clan and Imperial Dark Tribe respectively. To get the power of the ancient continent, they had attacked each other right before they could get into the center. Haig came here because of Harson, but now, Audrey had stopped him. He didn't have extra effort to give aid to Harson. However, when Audrey attacked him, he suddenly recognized that as long as he could hold Audrey here, Harson wouldn't have big trouble. Haig and Harson had been competing with each other both secretly and explicitly for years. He knew how terrifying Harson was more than anyone else. He knew that even if he wanted to defeat Harson, he had to bear a significant damage. Thus, he believed that Harson wouldn't lose. He knew this lunatic of the Charteris family, and he knew how he could perform formidably and crazily in a bloody battle. Many pieces of the broken island were drifting on the sea where thick mist hovered. The sea now had tremors and earth-shaking explosions and vibrations. Tsunamis and storms were risen, putting the sea in its most violent and furious state. Cecilia and Shang Ying were standing on a small rock, watching the tremendous energy wreaking havoc in the sea. They both looked aghast, but they were trying to find Yin. However, because of the battle between Haig and Audrey, the sea was more turbulent and chaotic, so they couldn't locate Yin. While they were restlessly anxious, a big ancient tree pierced through the thick mist, emerging in their vision. A fat body like a mountain of meat was sitting cross-legged on that log of tree. You two, follow me. Cang Yun appeared all of a sudden. The log of wood stopped by the rock. He squinted and waved at them. Where is Yin? Cecilia hastened. Cang Yun peered through his small eyes as he smiled. He's still fighting Harson. But no worries, he'll be all right. You guys should go with me. We're heading to the center first. We will meet him again there. Are you sure we could meet him there? Shang Ying frowned. Of course, Cang Yun gave a silly smile. He and I have an appointment. Why do you want to go with us? Cecilia was skeptical. Because you stand on his side, and I also need partners. Cang Yun looked a little impatient. Audrey is fighting Haig and Yin is fighting Harson. Anyway, the center is about to open. Their fights have to cease when it opens. They are the two battles that are predestined to have no final results. You guys shouldn't worry about him. Cecilia and Shang Ying exchanged looks. They pondered for a while and then nodded. Let's go, Cang Yun urged. Cecilia and Shang Ying swiftly leaped up from the rock and landed on Cang Yun's ancient log of tree. The drifting log accelerated as fast as electricity. It moved with the wind across the sea. The surging sea seemed to not affect the log of wood. On the other side of the broken island, the biggest piece after the island drifted apart, Yin and Harsin gasped for their breaths. Their god bodies were covered in blood. Both of them had brutal, crazy energy fluctuations. Columns of gas created by the explosive, evil energy in their bodies twirled up into the sky and became strange auroras, just like the stream of energy entering the sky. The phantoms of demons from the negative energy were attacking the columns of gas, making the void explode. Harsin had placed the members of the Charteris family on another piece of land. They had run away quietly after receiving a soul message from him. They were heading to the center. Haig's team came when the thick mist started to expand when Harsin's troops had already gone. They were the first wave that aimed at the center. Harsin stayed to stop them, fighting Yin crazily. They were the two most brutal animals using their power Upanishads to assault each other. Unexpectedly, they seemed to be equally strong. Haha, a descendant of a bloodthirsty's inheritances. Mwahahaha. Harsin laughed like crazy, showing his fangs. Do you know whose bones are these? Haha, it's Shan, he's little brother. He cultivated death power Upanishad. Our Charteris family killed him and used his bones to create the secret formation. My soul can enslave him forever. So what? Yan's eyes were as red as blood. A vicious, bloodthirsty aura wound around him and made him the most dangerous demon. I will kill you. I will kill all of your subordinates. I will collect each piece of Shan's bones. Ha ha ha. What do you get from collecting Shan's skeleton? You can't beat me, admit it. Harsin laughed crazily. He and Yin had fought for a while on this island. They had used energy, powers Upanishads, and even their bodies to strike each other thousands of times. However, no one had gained the upper hand. Harsin, the warrior that didn't really put Haig in his eyes, now considered Yin his equal opponent in this fight for the first time. He had used his best abilities, but he hadn't successfully stopped Yin. Finally, Harsin knew why the elders of the God Clan had to wince mentioning the Immortal Demon Clan and the Bloodthirsty Force. After this battle, he understood that the Immortal Demon Clan and the Bloodthirsty Force were truly the mortal enemies of his God Clan. It's true that I can't do anything to you when you have your troops around, but now, you'll be defeated, said Yin ferociously. Harsin was the important seed of the Charteris family and the future successor. The Charteris family was called the Racial Terminator, and they were the most terrifying blood-dripping sabers of the God Clan. The bloody massacres of the God Clan in the Big Star area were often carried out by this family. Harsin's power Upanishad was evil and mystic. It was the power Upanishad that could raise his fighting desire to infinity. It kept him in the utmost excited state of mind. This kind of power Upanishad could burn his essence qi, blood, and flesh to strengthen himself. It was an extremely stubborn and crazy power Upanishad, a power Upanishad of mysterious and evil power. It was also the primary power Upanishad of the Charteris family. The God Clan's wicked formation carved on the stone steels in the God-perishing land that used the iron chains and the soul-sucking demonic flower to take the blood and flesh of the prisoners were also from the Charteris family. And at the same time, the wounded god warriors staying inside the stone steel were also from the Charteris family. Each member of the Charteris family was a madman. They could burn their own blood and flesh to increase their energy and competence shortly. However, they had to pay a big price. After each battle, their souls and bodies were damaged severely. They had to use the evil formations to refill the consumed energy. Still, they needed time to recover. Most of the god warriors staying in the God Parish land were from the Charteris family. The Charteris family called their power Upanishad the Burning Purgatory. It was the most mysterious, supernatural power Upanishad of the God Clan. Chapter 1155. Cang Yun won't get the worst of it. Chapter 1155. Cang Yun won't get the worst of it on Earth. Auspicious clouds like beautiful, brilliant fish scales gathered above the center of Desolate, the ancient continent. Majestically imposing mountains stood still, supporting earth and heaven and giving people a subduing aura that nothing could compare to. The refreshing scents of grass, spirit herbs, and blooming flowers wound around the place and diffused from the center. They were the diluted heavenly river that calmed and refreshed the minds, making people inhale continuously to enjoy more. They couldn't help but want to get those grass and herbs to improve their strength and souls. The 4 territories, including the glacier, swamp, forest, and the immense sea, all had their barriers melted down. Earth and heaven's spirit chi of the 4 territories moved and mingled with each other, creating milky white rivers of energy and flowing towards the center of the ancient continent. The sea territory was a big ocean near the center with many islands and islets. Many silhouettes were moving fast in that area. They were the young geniuses of different clans of this vast universe. A light divine boat created by 5-colored divine light radiated the dazzling light in the thick fog. It looked sacred and solemn, indeed. A fulgent lotus imperial throne made of billions of crystals released a pure and cold aura. However, the center of this throne seemed to connect directly to the sinister hell. Countless evil spirits were crying, howling, and trying to get out. The members of the God Clan and the other experts from different star areas were performing their best abilities and energy attacks in the middle of the drifting islands. The floating ethereal extents and the God domains had stirred up the sea, rising tsunamis, storms, and tornadoes, which boiled the sea water. On a stream closest to the center, logs of wood pierced through the area like sharp swords. Around that time, warriors of the Charteris family were riding the logs. They all looked dark and cold. A perceptible piece of bone appeared on their abdomen and gave people a clue of something very evil. On the same stream was another drifting log that was pretty far behind them. It carried only 3 people, a man and 2 women. The fat man looked like a giant maggot that had a piercing look as if he could drill through the thick mist to observe the members of the Charteris family. His small eyes squinted to the icy slits. He grinned inaudibly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. All of a sudden, near the center where the Charteris family's members were riding the wooden logs, a surging energy swept over and tried to wreck everything. A massive energy vortex appeared, which looked like the mouth of a giant beast that could swallow the whole sky. They could even see the pointy fangs that were like sharp spears in there. The energy vortex moved and stirred the seawater. Shortly after, it swallowed the logs of wood that the Charteris warriors were riding all together with their riders. The sounds of the massive mouth chewing things arose from the vortex. Each of the Charteris warriors was struggling crazily and releasing energy. They knew that they had been plotted against. You cultivate water power, Upanishad, right? Cang Yun suddenly turned his fat face, smiling mildly and asking Cecilia. Cecilia was surprised, but she still nodded. Yeah? Wait for a little more. I would like you to show your power and let those bastards have fun. Cang Yun's bead eyes had a malicious gleam as he muttered, I used to be bullied by the Charteris warriors in this sea area. I had to use all of my tricks to escape. Today, if I have a chance to repay their favors, I won't let it slip away. I hope you guys would help me deal with them. You had disappeared for a while to set up the trap aimed at the Charteris warriors? Asked Cang Yun solemnly. Looking at the innocent fat face that seemed harmless to both humans and animals, she suddenly felt a chill in her heart. Behind this man's warm smile, what kind of wicked thoughts did he have? Yep, Cang Yun laughed heartily. He stood up on one end of the log and sent out a beam of pure energy, which made the log surf forward quickly like a dragon. I can get anything, but I won't get the worst of them. I will repay even the smallest thing that they have treated me. Cecilia and Cang Yun exchanged looks. They became unnatural as they suddenly felt that this fatty who would repay even the slightest grudge wasn't safe at all. The terrifying vortex appeared in their sight like the mouth of a demon that was chewing food. The Charteris warriors were being dragged into the maelstrom. They were shaken so hard that they felt so dizzy, and even the god power in their bodies disordered. You don't need to give me face. Cang Yun laughed until his small eyes became slits and nodded to Cecilia. All right. Cecilia pursed her lips. The sounds of rapid, flowing water arose from her plump body. The magical energy bobbed and expanded. The seawater around her rose up into the sky. Billions of tons of water were compressed rapidly. The egg-sized water balls emerged, which were as heavy as a mountain with the energy in the shape of Cecilia. Extremely great water. Cang Yun threw a glance, smiling contentedly and nodding continuously. This was a subtle performance of water power Upanishad, which compressed the water tens of thousands of times to have a pure energy attack as heavy as a mountain. This strike would be flexible like water and be endlessly compelling. Cecilia had compressed the seawater to make drops of extremely great water. They twirled in the sky like pure energy cannonballs that then bombarded the vortex in front of her. Boom, boom, boom. The sea exploded and sent grand mountain-like waves up into the air. The vortex forcefully collapsed into the sea. The Charteris warriors being dragged into the maelstrom disappeared shortly after. You guys continue moving forward. I'm going to the sea to check if I can kill more. Cang Yun cheered loudly and then advised Cecilia and Cang Yu. Then, he plunged into the sea like a big worm, diving deeper to the bottom. Who is this man after all? Why do I always feel like something is wrong? After his aura had utterly disappeared, Cecilia mumbled, her face awkward. Unfortunately, Cang Yu couldn't explain her doubt as she was also suspicious, trying to guess Cang Yun's real identity. On a corner of the sea territory, earth and heaven energy, like a dense heavenly river, gathered and poured above Shi Yan's head. I can defeat you because I can urge and collect earth and heaven energy, which is infinite in this ancient continent. You'll be worn out to death. Shi Yan smiled crazily. Earth and heaven energy above his head was forced and formed into an energy giant whose head touched the sky. The giant looked like it was made of thick mist with terrifying energy. It could shoulder the sky and stomp the ground, giving people the impression of an invincible creature. The giant furiously tore and smashed the gas columns that Harson was controlling from his subordinate's soul energy. It turns out that you fused with the origin like Hague. Blood trickled down the corner of Harson's mouth. His face was dark and harsh when he shouted. Warriors with the origin weren't shackled in the ancient continent. Moreover, they could urge and collect the earth and heaven energy there. In this place, this kind of warrior could collect as much energy as he wanted to create a possibly lethal attack. While the two sides were still struggling and losing energy, Shi Yan suddenly struck out his sharp attack that pushed Harson into a dangerous situation. But it was not only that. After Harson had just shouted, the bloody bone in his abdomen sent him a heart-pricking pain. His soul altar also throbbed like someone had used the big needle to thrust him. His face paled like a skeletal white-faced demon. He faced the sky and howled mournfully, "Who's killing my warriors?" The Charteris family's warriors with Xian Shan's bones had been interlinked with Harson. The pain from his bone in the abdomen and his soul altar told him one thing. Some of his warriors were dying. Harson roared sorrowfully. He shot Shi Yan a sinister glare and said, "I will kill you in the center." Then, without waiting for Shi Yan to reply, Harson drilled into the thick fog immediately and flew away like a bolt of lightning. He was out of Shi Yan's sight shortly after. Shi Yan grinned evilly, but he didn't chase after him. He just sat down cross-legged. He knew that Cang Yun was the one who had killed Harson's subordinates, and he knew his mysterious competence. It was good for Shi Yan to have some basis to estimate Cang Yun's real abilities when Harson came there and troubled him. The 4 pieces of blood-dripping bones lay quietly by him. He squinted and released the white mist of negative energy that was entering the bones. He attempted to erase the wicked formation carved on the bones. Afterward, he would make these bones his sharp, fatal weapons. As they came from Xian Shan, Xian He's blood brother, they had the essence of death power Upanishad, which would boost up his energy and abilities tremendously. The soul consciousness connected the blood bone. His soul quietly moved and urged the power Upanishad, making his acupuncture points release a suction force. He then twisted his soul consciousness and it extended to a remote area. On the other side of the sea, Cecilia and Cang Yu were sitting on a log of ancient wood when a strong vibration appeared behind their back. 3 blood-dripping bones shot out of the sea together with some pieces of internal organs. They flew away as if they had received an emergency call. It's sure Yin. It's him, though. Cecilia and Cang Yun screamed. They shut their mouths immediately, exchanging odd looks. Move faster. Cang Yun's voice arose from the bottom of the sea. In the next moment, he floated up and landed on one end of the log. What happened? Cecilia asked, having no clue at all. Harson the mad dog is coming. He's crazy now. I don't want to risk my life to fight him. Cang Yun said curtly. He's very dangerous at the moment. Whoever provokes him will receive a very, very bad consequence. Perhaps he would kill altogether. We'd better head to the center. Otherwise, it will be big trouble. Cecilia and Cang Yun wore astounded complexions. They knew why Harson was coming. If Cang Yun hadn't plotted his warriors and killed 3 of them, Harson wouldn't have chased after them crazily. No one dared to encounter Harson when he was mad. Cecilia and Cang Yun shivered. They pulled themselves together and focused on mobilizing their energy to protect themselves. Don't be so tense. Before he comes, I will take you 2 to the center. Yeah, it's like I'm doing him a favor. When I meet him, I'll tell him that I've proactively done a lot of things for him. I didn't just watch the fun, right? Cang Yun beamed a silly smile, using his maximum speed to urge the wood. He shot it like it was a lightning bolt towards the center. Chapter 1156, Desolate. Chapter 1156, Desolate _ Lights of the 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth moved and generated continuously like the life cycle of earth and heaven energy. The radiant light divine boat was covering the crystal lotus imperial throne. The meandering energy at the horizon of the sea that was like murmuring streams flowed towards the center, which had just opened. The energy of the other 4 territories was drawn all away, and it vanished quickly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Shadows of god warriors sitting on the floating logs of wood drifted over. Most of them were Haig's, Mia's, or Phelps's troopers who were ditched behind. They had just arrived in this area. Haig and Audrey were fighting in the sky between 2 small islands using their light divine boat and the dark god imperial throne. They had stirred up the entire sky and place, making the sea seethe tremendously. Mia, Phelps, and the others joined hands to fight Mo Fo, Fuller, Wu Feng, and the warriors who had followed Audrey. Mia's team was in a bad situation. However, after the god warriors came, they could overturn the situation immediately. They began to force Fuller, Wu Feng, and Mo Fo, and the others to run away like the rats. Harson was trying his best to dash towards the center. Cang Yun brought Cecilia and Cang Yun. They were the first wave of warriors to enter the center. They had already disappeared in the other end of the sea territory. Harson ran to the area where his subordinates were in trouble. After he had gathered them, he brought them to the center and stopped caring about Yin. Their auras disappeared from the sea territory shortly after. As Haig and Audrey could see the change of living being auras, they found that there were 2 groups of warriors who had already entered the center. Although they were confronting harshly, they both wanted to finish this meaningless battle quickly. As the 2 parties were equally strong, they couldn't defeat each other in a short time, and the time that the center stayed open was limited. Without much hesitation, they parted and streamed into 2 groups heading towards the center. While in the corner of the thick, mist-covered sea, Yin was sitting and holding the blood-dripping bones. His soul consciousness was winding around like a big net. The life aura of Cang Yun, Harson, Haig, and Audrey had disappeared one after another in this sea territory. Yin knew what it meant when he found no one or any soul energy fluctuation. Everyone except for him had entered the center, and Yin's soul consciousness found that the barrier between the center and the outer areas seemed to start solidifying once more. His face changed slightly. He put the 7 bloody bones into his fantasy sky ring and stopped his activity of cleaning the evil formation. His thoughts flickered and his soul altar spun to urge the space power Upanishad. The light in front of him moved and drew light rings right in front of him. At a normal speed, Yin retrieved his soul consciousness, stepping through the light rings. His body disappeared partially after each step. In the next second, he reappeared by the barrier outside the center as if he had just stepped out of the space slit that helped him cross thousands of miles in just a blink of an eye. Streams of energy gathered from everywhere. Like small rivers congregating into the sea, they all poured into the center. Those energy streams were milky white, and they were almost like some liquid that the naked eye could see and the soul consciousness could touch. Only the pure and thick earth and heaven energy at a specific degree could become liquid or visible to the eyes and tangible to the soul consciousness. It spoke up to the fact that Desolate was the place of abundant energy, and only this continent could bear countless strange and precious materials that warriors from every life star craved for. The reason why Harson, Haig of the God Clan, Cang Yun of the Heavenly Monster Tribe, Princess Audrey of the Imperial Dark Tribe, and the other outstanding warriors of the other star areas like Wu Feng, Mo Fo, Shang Yingyu, and Cecilia gathered here was because of the mysteries of the ancient continent. Warriors from different areas of this cosmos gathered here for one and only reason: the center. The center had given birth to spirit herbs, chalcedonies, and crystals that were the all-priceless items in this world. Also, it would have original incipient grade materials. To enter the center, the warriors had been fighting for 5 years. Today, as the center had finally opened, the battle between them could be even fiercer and bloodier. According to Cang Yun, the center hid a big secret, which mattered to Cang Yun, Haig, Audrey, and Shi Yin, the 4 special existences with the origins. It was the reason why Cang Yun, Haig, Audrey, and Shi Yin gathered here. Shi Yin suddenly realized that Shang Chun was asked by an expert of the bloodthirsty force to give him the guiding fruit that would lead him to the center. All was because of the secret of the center. He had no clue what that secret could be. Instinctively, he touched the blood vein ring, frowning and looking at the liquid streams of energy in front of him. He became determined, and he stepped in. It felt like the earth and sky were changing their positions. A horrendous vortex suddenly emerged, drawing his body into the center. Shi Yin was frightened, but he couldn't do anything. In the center of that terrifying vortex, no matter what he tried, he couldn't control his body, so he could only follow the vortex spinning. Shortly after, he entered the center of the vortex. He focused and got startled. This vortex was made of white ivory rings that were narrowed inwardly. There were thousands of them. Apparently, those ivory rings were the streams of energy coming from everywhere. They were all congregating in this vortex. This strange phenomenon had frightened him. He was flown towards the center of the vortex that he had tried to struggle against. Unfortunately, he found that he could do nothing but bring pain to his body. It felt like he got punished because he wanted to go against the mighty heaven. He pulled himself together and gave up the useless struggle. Calming his mind, he focused on observing the spinning vortex. Shi Yin was shocked. The massive vortex that seemed to cover the whole world was created by the pure earth and energy, making each of the rings. They were moving by some principles of nature. After he had given up struggling to sense, he found that the moving principle of the vortex was pretty similar to the acupuncture points in his body when they filtered the essence chi of the dead. When this thought emerged, he couldn't help but feel shaken. He pulled himself together, his mind and his will concentrating on the magical features of this vortex. The soul altar began to spin all of a sudden. The magical black hole in the center suddenly throbbed. Shi Yin was perplexed. After a while, he urged his host soul, moving to the black hole. He was frightened to see a massive vortex filling the mouth of the black hole. That vortex used the fine soul threads to create the rings, which seemed to be the most marvelous structure in this world that released magical energy fluctuations that nothing could compare to. 720 acupuncture points in his body, the black hole in his soul altar, and the vortex that was stirring his real body around were created by the smaller or bigger vortex, which had amazingly similar movement patterns. They seemed to come from the same features of the Power Upanishad. As he came to that conclusion, he totally gave up his resistance and just let the vortex draw his body. At the same time, his soul consciousness was moving around the acupuncture points in his body, and the devouring Power Upanishad was moving around in the soul altar to find some connection. After an unknown time, rumble, he suddenly felt so dizzy. He felt like a meteor and hit something hard. He hadn't recognized that he was lying at the foot of a mountain inside a blooming flower bush with his eyes closed. He looked as if he was sinking in a beautiful dream, flying around a fairyland without wanting to go back. Fresh flowers bloomed around him in many colors with a sweet fragrance. Transparent amber drops of nectar oozed out from the flowers, which were like mirrors that could show his reflections. It was a flowery valley that had no creature besides Yin laying here. It seemed like this valley hadn't received any visitors for billions of years. It remained in its most primal condition, which didn't have any trail. Grand mountains lay in layers. Earth and heaven energy floated like rivers from heaven. Rainbows crossed the sky like bridges leading to fairyland. 5-colored auspicious clouds that looked like they had their own consciousness floated in the river of energy. This world was so calm. Yin didn't even hear a single sound. Pretty far from him was a majestic holy mountain that connected the sky and earth. Its summit pierced deep in the sky where terrifying energy vibes were sent out. That holy mountain seemed to be the heart of the ancient continent and the control center. It was where the continent managed the transmigration and the pulsation of the ancient continent. The mountain could touch both the sky and the ground at the same time, and it had its own consciousness. If someone could stand on the peak of that holy mountain, he could observe the entire place and see countless mountains, lakes, sea areas, forests, deserts, volcanoes, and even the glaciers. This position was like the eye that could observe every detail around. That I could see many tiny shadows like little ants moving around the rivers, deserts, mountains, and lakes everywhere. Those were the outstanding young talents from different races. They were scattered around the edge of the center while the grand, holy mountain was in the center. Even the surroundings of their current locations were pretty similar to the first 4 territories they had visited. If they could sense carefully, they would find that the earth and heaven energy here was moving totally differently. The energy fluctuations in their current areas hid the dangerous, murderous aura and flooded every corner. They could support each other. The entire center area was like a massive death trap that nature had created. This death trap consisted of deadly formations, forbidden lands, and dangerous topographies of different pieces of land. This grand masterpiece was like the work of mighty heaven. Without any extra add-on, it was like a training court that nature had built for many creatures. The holy mountain standing imposingly in the center to connect earth and heaven was the center of the death trap, the soul of the ancient continent. It could hold everything in its hands. Just like a cold, nonchalant archangel from the sky watching the feeble creatures struggling with their strong wills and operating by the rules it had set up, it would reward them properly. Compared to it, all warriors who had come here were just weak insects. Even Haig, Cang Yun, Audrey, and Yin, the ones who had fused with the origin, were just special insects. They still needed to follow its rule to survive. And it didn't have any emotion that any creature should have. It just watched everything with indifferent eyes. Chapter 1157. Someone lives, someone dies. Chapter 1157. Someone lives, someone dies, _ Yin was lying in the middle of a flowery valley, his body crushing many fresh flowers. He closed his eyes as if he was fast asleep. His face looked calm and peaceful as if he was having the most beautiful dream. Magical, crystal-like nectar dripped from the flowers with the most pleasant fragrance, reflecting his body. All of a sudden, something strange happened. His reflections in those drops of nectar suddenly jumped out of the drops like they were his souls in the fantasy dreams. The shadows that had his shape all flew into his soul altar and moved in his sea of consciousness. Yin's clear mind was suddenly invaded. His brain sent him a pain that was like a pricking needle. His study of the massive vortex was forced to stop. He opened his eyes and saw his own images floating in his sea of consciousness. Although they looked exactly like him, he couldn't contact them. They were like phantoms. When those phantoms glided above his calm sea of consciousness, they rose the waves and started riding on the gusts. Wisps of his soul consciousness were pulled out by those phantoms forcefully. Yin felt the hair on his nape rising. Those shadows that could just be illusions were trying to invade his soul and dig into his sea of consciousness. They wanted to make him a body without a soul. He was frightened when his spirit, soul, and chi were invaded. While his thoughts were changing, he tried to urge his soul altar to use the powers Upanishads to burn them down. Abruptly, he was dumbstruck. In his soul altar at the tier of powers Upanishad, heaven flames, and the black hole, and even by the host soul, Shi Yin found many illusions of himself. However, they had floral auras. They were trying to force his soul and compressed him like a horde of conquerors. Those floral spirits wanted to control his soul and control his god body and all that was him. Shi Yin discolored in fright. Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out! Soul messages that shooed him away thundered in his mind continuously. Those came from the phantoms that were invading him. Shi Yin felt that his head was exploding as if there were billions of people cursing and chanting to make him leave. They wanted to break his mind and spirit, which would expel his soul from his body and leave his soul altar unowned. By his lying body, countless beautiful flowers were swaying and droning as if they were supporting billions of wisps of different consciousness in his brain. They wanted to make him give up and leave him a body without a soul. They were forcing him to give up his body. Court death. His unyielding will of steel wasn't defeated by the chanting and hostile shouting. His soul altar moved and flashed as his acupuncture points were urged. The 720 acupuncture points were different worlds of revolving vortexes. Abruptly, torrential negative energy including bloodthirsty, destructive, desperate, resentful, and crazy emotions flooded like a massive sea. Almost instantly, they sank his entire body. Inside his soul altar, a black hole was activated. The devouring power Upanishad sent out a terrifying suction force. Countless thoughts of feeble despair were generated and multiplied in his head. The shadows that had intruded his brain started to struggle and wriggle as they found the terrifying threat. They wanted to retreat and get out of his god body immediately. Different negative energies appeared in his acupuncture points and created a layer of flesh and keratin to shroud his entire body. Those people that looked exactly like him couldn't pierce through the layer. They were kept inside. They could only send him a begging message to ask for his mercy. Swoosh, swoosh. Just like a big whale sucking water, the shadows that looked like Shi Yin turned into flows of essence chi that were drawn into the black hole. All of them were devoured shortly after. All sorts of distracting thoughts disappeared in just a blink of an eye. His soul altar could spin again. However, Shi Yin felt that his spirit was shaken as his host soul had a magical feeling of eating some great tonic. He felt so refreshed as if his soul was cleaned once. This feeling was very similar to the time he had his soul cleaned some time years ago. And his soul was nurtured tremendously. Beams of essence of the florist around him flew out from the black hole and seeped into his soul altar like the most delicious wine. Suddenly, his soul altar was purified once. Shi Yin pulled himself together, checking his situation and surroundings. He was astounded. Withered flowers and grass were around him on an area of hundreds of miles. He was lying in the center of this valley of dead florists. Within his sight, there was no living flower. He was surprised for a while before he could understand the situation. Pondering for a while, he vaguely understood it. The shadows invading his head were the spirits of the flowers and trees in this area. After tens of thousands of years taking in the earth and heaven energy in this area, they slowly gained intellect. So they wanted to have another chance to advance and evolve. They knew that the tree or the grass couldn't bear their consciousness and they couldn't have a new life if they stayed within those shells. They had a terrible urge to find a better container. Apparently, Shi Yin coming here all of a sudden had given them hope. They seized the chance while he was learning the magical features of the vortex to discreetly get into his brain and stir up his soul altar with their special methods. They had acted as if his soul was actually their home and Shi Yin was just a stubborn guest who didn't want to leave. If he hadn't had the evil negative energy in his acupuncture points that could make the black hole use its power, his host soul could have been expelled. And those floral spirits could have had a chance to build their new life form using his soul altar. With his god body as the foundation and the floral spirits as the soul, they could have given birth to a brand new race. Looking at the withered vegetation that was in all directions around 100 miles away, Shi Yin contemplated for a while. His eyes were fixed to a holy mountain standing afar. Shi Yin frowned as he found that his soul consciousness was like it was moving in a foggy area. It couldn't give him any useful information. He couldn't sense any strange commotions. In this area, his extraordinary ability seemed to be ineffective. Shi Yin had a vague feeling. He felt that the majestic holy mountain was coldly looking at him like an archangel watching a tiny, vulnerable ant. It could use the power of nature to force any creature to act as it pleased. It would never allow anyone to trespass its rules or change anything. Shi Yin didn't have any evidence for this feeling. He didn't know whether he should cry or smile. However, he could actually sense its existence. It wasn't something vague, though. He remembered what Shang Chan had told him. Desolate had its wit. It had a life and consciousness. It was a form of life that was totally different from any other race. Right in the dawn of this cosmos, it was there, and it used its own methods to affect the vast universe. Desolate was the most mystic and wonderful existence in this universe. No one could affect it. It only affected them in its unique way. Shi Yin looked at the holy mountain and deeply felt this strange intuition. He suddenly believed Shang Qin's words without the slightest doubt. Desolate wasn't only an ancient continent. It was a unique life form with consciousness and intellect. Confirming this, he suddenly stood in awe of the holy mountain. He hesitated for a while before sitting cross-legged on the ground where he was surrounded by the withered flowers. He stroked the fantasy sky ring to take out the seven-colored spirit flower. His deep co-soul emerged from his pupil and covered the crystal that sealed the seven-colored spirit flower. The seven-colored spirit flower could fuse the heaven flames of the origin together. It was a crucial item to warriors who had heaven flames. It could increase the integration degree of the flaming origin in their co-soul. His co-soul was made of 10 different heaven flames. When he was in the fountainhead of powers Upanishads, he had fused the earth flame, the purgatory flame, and the vermilion bird true flame into one. Today, his co-soul still had 8 heaven flames that hadn't fused with each other. On the day he saw Audrey, he knew that the integration degree of his heaven flames in the co-soul was far behind Audrey's. And he now knew that the marvelous connection between the co-soul and Grace Mainland was related to the degree of his fused heaven flames. Thus, as he knew he was relatively safe here and no one would come to disturb him in a short time, he didn't spend time to investigate the mysteries of this ancient continent. However, fusing the heaven flames of the origin co-soul was his most urgent task. He tried to use the seven-colored spirit flower to fuse the heaven flames with different natures. In a corner of the center where there was a burning desert, 2 graceful figures were walking in between a rocky area in the middle of the desert. Their clothes were damp and stuck on their bodies. The yellow sand was like red iron. The women had to mobilize God power to their feet and create an energy layer to resist the scorching sand. In front of them were mountains ranges where they could see the majestic holy mountain between the other peaks. However, even though the 2 of them had walked through the desert for a long time, they couldn't cross this desert. They could see the mountain ranges, but they couldn't reach them no matter how hard they tried. Gradually, a desperate feeling churned in their hearts. The 2 figures were Cecilia and Shang Yu. In a volcano, hot lava was erupting and sending deadly flames with rumbling fiery energy. Sha Zhao, Zhao Shan, and Zhao Hai were in the flaming lava pond. They were trying to get out of this hell-like area. They wanted to get out of the volcano mouth. They had fallen into this volcano mouth after the vortex had drawn them away. The extremely high temperature of this area had melted one warrior who had accompanied them. Before that warrior had fallen into the lava pond, he was careless and he didn't use the god power to create a protective halo. Thus, he was killed instantly. In the gloomy, tranquil glacier, Wu Feng, Mo, and the others were frozen. They were now ice sculptures in the glacier. Energy rippled through them as if they were attacking the ice and were trying to get rid of this icy confinement. In an area where the tornadoes were wreaking havoc, Mia, Yuman, and the others were struggling to steady their bodies. They couldn't stand still and from time to time, They had more cuts on their bodies by the wind blades. They were struggling very hard to get rid of this tiring situation. In the other places of ponds, lakes, desert, and glaciers, the warriors came from the island including Haig, Phelps, Audrey, Mia, and Cang Yun had fallen into different death traps. They were trying to survive. Some warriors were killed. Some warriors eventually found a way to escape the death traps quickly. At the same time, a small number of warriors had soon escaped their deadly situation with some bonuses and advantages. They were cultivating and advancing to another level. Chapter 1158. Fusing 3 Heaven Flames. Chapter 1158. Fusing 3 Heaven Flames _ All the vegetation in the valley withered and died. A sturdy body sat still, his eyes closed. A beautiful flame floated in front of his glabella, which had different colors including scarlet, shining silver, dark green, and ice blue. It looked so magnificent. A peculiar flower that had a face of a pretty woman was covered by that flame. The crystal shrouding the flower was slowly melted down, revealing its astonishing glamour. However, that beauty was wincing in pain, and it looked so real as if it was a real pretty lady. The flower was fiercely burned, and it melted down into a transparent liquid that was then evaporated by the flame. However, it didn't become steam but turned into some fine, long, fluid-like threads that looked like saliva. As the flame was illuminating it, it had many different hues. A mysterious but deep feeling churned in Shi Yan's heart. His co-soul seemed to be divided into different sections by those fine threads. Many years ago, he had used the Heaven Flame Refining Divine Technique to create the co-soul from the origin and the 10 Heaven Flames with his soul seal. At that time, he thought he had completed the soul fusion and that the 10 Heaven Flames were integrated completely into one entity. However, he recognized afterward that the Heaven Flame Refining Divine Technique had just helped him create the co-soul. The distinctive auras of the 10 different Heaven Flames had still existed in his co-soul. They hadn't wholly fused with each other yet. In the Fountainhead of Powers Upanishads, Yushan and Xianfei had explained to him and made him realize it wasn't simple to fuse the Heaven Flames. In the same area, he had tried to fuse the Heaven Flames with similar characteristics: the Purgatory True Flame, the Earth Flame, and the Vermilion Bird True Flame. They had become a brand new source of flaming energy, seizing a particular spot in his co-soul. Today, with the power of the 7-colored spirit flower, the auras of the 8 types of heaven flames in his co-soul became distinguishing. Eventually, the 7-colored spirit flower was melted utterly into a viscous, transparent liquid. Each drop of this fluid could be stretched and elongated like soul threads, filling his co-soul and contacting each of the heaven flames. It gave them a bridge to connect with each other. The 7-colored spirit flower fluid had a magical effect. It could guide the auras of the heaven flames that were easy to gather. The Een spirit ghost flame, the immemorial demonic flame, and the corpse vanishing flame were different, but they seemed to have a subtle connection. Under the guidance of the transparent soul threads, they flew up, drifting and dancing in his co-soul. His co-soul was now a crystal skull made of brilliant flames. He could see the different colored flames taking different areas in the skull. Some fine threads like soul fibers scattered around the skull like a net. He then saw 3 flames in green, blue, and ash-gray colors from the 3 points of a triangle flying towards the center. That center was the glabella of the transparent skull where a fierce soul energy fluctuation was emitted. The green color flame was the corpse vanishing flame, the blue one was the Een spirit ghost flame, and the ash-gray one was the immemorial demonic flame. The 3 different colored flames slowly moved. Eventually, they congregated in the center of the skull, right beneath the glabella. The tearing brain pain swarmed over Shi Yan's soul. Not only was his co-soul flickering rapidly, his host soul, the soul altar, and even his god body felt like thousands of sharp razors were cutting through. This terrible pain made Shi Yan scream and screech in this valley where no one could see him. His shrieks and howls were like those of a wild beast, and his screams reverberated and traveled far away. It would have made the hair on people's napes rise if they heard him. While he was screeching, The three flames in green, blue, and ash gray were turbulent like boiling water. They twisted with each other like three ribbons that were inseparable. Slowly, they became one. In a desolate valley in the center of the ancient continent, Yin was enduring the pain of heart-cutting to fuse his heaven flames. By a pond not really far from him stood a silent, beautiful figure. She was frowning and looking at the pond. The pond was so bright and clear that she could see her own reflection like a mirror. Gradually, some marvelous illusion appeared. A little girl with a braided ponytail was crouching and hugging her knees in a dark, heavy abyss. She covered her face and sobbed in a muffled voice. Her shoulders shivered as she was so scared and aggrieved. The evil ghosts and spirits were wandering around her petite body, howling and wailing. Their terrifying voice rolled and created waves that naked eyes could see attacking the little girl. The girl quivered in fear and shouted as if she was cracked crazy. Her ear-piercing scream crashed countless ghosts into pieces like a sharp sword. The illusion disappeared. A new one took place. The little girl was now a teenager around 12 or 13 years old. She was confined in a secret domain of fiery flames and bitter ice. She was using her soft body to resist. Her skin cracked not long after that. Different illusions changed like a nightmare that was eroding people's hearts. Eventually, the pond stopped at the image of the adult version of that little girl, a cold and proud woman. That was Princess Audrey of the Imperial Dark Clan. This pond was like a mirror that had reflected her entire life. The corner of her cold mouth twitched. The image in the pond suddenly drifted apart and disappeared like a reflection in a shattered mirror. The pond resumed its calmness. Nothing strange happened afterward. She couldn't help but snort and glide like a ghost over the pond. As she was heading to the majestic holy mountain, she suddenly heard some wild beast screaming like the thunderclap coming from afar. It was loud enough to make her soul altar tremble. Squinting, she hesitated for a while. She gave up the thought of heading to the mountain and made a turn. After a long time, she appeared lonely in a valley where flowers and trees were all withered. At first glance, she saw a man screaming and rolling on the ground in pain. He seemed to not be able to withstand the pain. Audrey changed her visage a little bit. Seeing the brilliant flame bobbing, she sensed and understood what was going on here immediately. Watching him with a cold face for a while, Audrey suddenly sat down by him and said nothing. She closed her eyes and began to cultivate as if she wanted to train her spirit in the waves of grunting and screeching. Yin was making loud commotions that had attracted more people. Sounds of breaking tree branches arose from a far distance. After a while, foreshadows slowly emerged. They were Phelps and 3 warriors of his family. From several thousand meters away, Phelps's sinister eyes gazed at Yin. He licked his lips and showed his bloodthirsty intention. He quietly waved his hand. Foreshadows quietly approached Yin. The energy in their god bodies was urged, surging powerfully. Suddenly, Phelps's visage froze as he saw a beautiful figure sitting quietly behind Yin. That woman was looked at him with her cold and sharp saber-like eyes. Phelps suddenly felt chilled. As soon as he saw the woman, he retreated without leaving a word. He was scared that both his soul and body would perish. The woman didn't chase after him. She stood still like a rigid ice sculpture with a chilling aura. Time flew fast. Gradually, Yin in front of her stopped screaming. He got up and drew earth and heaven energy to clean his vessels. The co-soul didn't move fiercely anymore. The 3 different flames had fused into one. All of a sudden, Audrey said in her usual cold voice, "You're all right now, I suppose?" Yin sat facing her and furrowed his brows slightly. "Why did you help me by protecting me here?" When Phelps's group of 4 came, he was in a critical moment. If they attacked him, his soul would have vanished and his body would have burned into ashes right away. When Audrey arrived, he felt incredibly insecure. He thought that Audrey would attack him. However, she had just sat down by him. Everything was so calm that it was out of his expectation. In the critical moment, she had helped him shoo away Phelps's team. "You're too careless." Audrey was still cold and arrogant. Fusing the heaven flames of the origin is the most painful practice. You need to bear the pain of your soul burning. It's the most terrible torment in this world. When you want to fuse your heaven flames, you should choose the safest area and you must have someone protecting you. Since you're so reckless, it's a miracle that you lived until now. As Audrey also had the origin, she had to experience the fusion of heaven flames too. She knew how terrible this kind of pain was more than anyone else. I don't know why you protected me, repeated Yin, his face dark. I fought against Haig. Audrey looked at him coldly. She pondered and then said seriously, I can't kill him alone. In this center, only you can help me kill him. Only the warrior who is fused with the origin can join hands with me to finish him. I need your power. That's all. Audrey told him the reason. Yin grinned strangely. He knew that Audrey wasn't precise because there was someone like that in this area. It was Cang Yun. However, as Cang Yun was from the heavenly monster tribe, he was destined to not stand under the same sky with her. Thanks for protecting me. Yin stood up and stretched his body. He retrieved the flame in front of his glabella. Don't worry. The God Clan is our common enemy. If we meet Haig, I'm sure I won't show mercy. You've battled against Harson. What do you think about him? Asked Audrey all of a sudden. Yin's face became solemn. He took a deep breath and then said, Harson is really strong. I haven't fought Haig, but I believe that Harson could compare to Haig. Harson can burn his flesh and blood to get energy. His soul power Upanishad is extreme too. He's adamant to deal with. It seems like we don't have a positive situation. Audrey's bright eyes looked heavy. I think what we should do now is to find and gather our people. That's how we can have the competence to fight the God Clan. Yin looked at the holy mountain in the distance. Too bad that my soul consciousness is bound in this place. It's not easy to gather them once again. How about you? Do you have any solution? Audrey shook her head begrudgingly. What do you think we should do? Asked Yin. Move forward and head to that big mountain. Along the way, we should gather our people and try to kill more members of the God Clan, suggested Audrey. Okay, you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.